Fu Feng looked at Lu Yun and also said anxiously, "There's no need, Senior Xiao. We'll send the Fu clan's disciples out to have a good chat with the Heavenly Talisman sect's disciples. We'll just talk. And this junior will also go out." Lu Yun smiled and waved her hand. Fu Shan and the other disciples followed her out of the welcoming hall. "Senior Xiao, please take a seat." Song Ying arranged the seats and respectfully invited Xiao Hua to take a seat. Xiao Hua looked around. Song Ying actually only placed one jade chair in the center. The other chairs were placed on both sides of the chair. The flattery in his eyes was self-evident. Xiao Hua nodded and said to Chiu Mingwei with a smile, "It would be impolite of me to refuse." "Of course. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please." Chiu Mingwei's face was a bit embarrassed. He was at the late stage of foundation establishment, and his cultivation was the highest among them. Xiao Hua was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. However, Chiu Mingwei still understood that Xiao Hua's appearance was somewhat discounted. Xiao Hua took a seat first. Chiu Mingwei, Liao Xianlan, Zhong Yejing and Fu Feng took the guest seats. Song Ying, Fu Zhu and Fu Ai sat on the left side of the main seat. Shui Shui was very curious and kept staring at Fu Zhu and Fu Ai. Xiao Hua drank a mouthful of spirit tea and said with a smile, "I'm quite familiar with the grudges between the two generations of the Fu clan. I was also involved in it a few decades ago. Elder Fu has already made a heart oath and explained it on behalf of Fu Yunbua. I won't say anything more. I only want to say one thing. It's up to you whether you want to listen or not. Senior Xiao, please enlighten us." Song Ying and Fu Feng hurriedly stood up and bowed. Both sides are from the Fu clan. No matter if it's Shi or Meng, the bloodline is the same. Xiao Hua said after pondering for a while. "If both sides fight, both sides will suffer. Actually, it's not that you haven't thought about it, but because of the hatred in your heart, you feel that the other side won't forgive you. That's why you're in a stalemate." Just now this Xiao clearly saw that Elder Fu is very fond of Fu Zhu and Fu Ma. In the future, the direct disciples of Talisman Gate will also be the children of these two people. Elder Fu may not necessarily not cherish them. Therefore, this Xiao hopes that your two families will take a few steps back and consider this matter carefully. Song Ying glanced at Fu Feng and didn't say anything. After all, he was the weaker side. "Junior will definitely pass on your words to the clan head." Fu Feng said with a smile, "Junior is only an elder after all. I can't promise Senior anything. And this is just a small thought of mine." Xiao Hua waved his hand. Then he looked at Liao Xianlan and said, "Fellow Taoist Liao, I'm also clear about your grudges. It seems to be in the Fu clan of Genoa Mountain, right?" "Yes." Liao Xianlan bit her lips and replied like a mosquito. I don't dare to talk about who is right and who is wrong. I'm sure fellow Taoist Chiu won't not talk about it with you." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "I just think that since you want to take revenge, you should clearly distinguish between gratitude and grudges. Don't drag unrelated people into this. Moreover, I won't hide it from you fellow Taoists. What I hate the most is using grudges as a cover to do things that harm others for their own benefit. It's against reason and nature." Liao Xuanlan's face flushed red. She lowered her head deeply and didn't dare to say a word. "Fellow Taoist Liao, you and I can be considered old friends. On Genoa Mountain we also look after each other. I won't say anything more today, and I don't want to pursue this matter anymore. Fellow Taoist is also a foundation establishment cultivator. The road to heaven is in front of fellow Taoist. I hope fellow Taoist Liao can take care of yourself." Xiao Hua said with a gloomy and cold tone. "Yes, Junior understands." For some reason, Liao Xuanlan's face turned pale. She murmured, "Even if Junior wants to improve her cultivation in the future, it will be extremely difficult. That's why Junior has evil thoughts. I want to obtain Fu clan head's yellow talisman technique." Xiao Hua stared blankly. He glanced at Liao Xianlan and then looked at Chiu Mingwei. Cough cough, Chiu Mingwei's face showed a trace of embarrassment. He knew Xiao Hua was going to ask, so he didn't hide it and told him the reason. It turned out that Chiu Mingwei had obtained a secret technique in his early years. It was the widely rumored human cauldron furnace technique of plucking yin to replenish yang. This human cauldron furnace technique was the same as dual cultivation. They both relied on the balance of yin and yang to achieve a breakthrough in cultivation. However, dual cultivation was based on the balance of yin and yang. It was beneficial for both men and women. However, the human cauldron furnace technique was different. The male cultivator was the main cultivator and the female cultivator was the auxiliary cultivator. The female cultivator could certainly benefit, but there were more injuries. Liao Xianlan was in such a situation. That day Chiu Mingwei met Liao Xianlan and saw that her constitution was different. It was actually compatible with his human cauldron furnace technique. He wanted to make Liao Xianlan his human cauldron. However, the human cauldron furnace technique was also voluntary. Therefore, Liao Xianlan set revenge as her condition. Of course, Chiu Mingwei would not blindly compromise. He only agreed to help her once. After all, he had to deal with a cultivator family. But that day, Liao Xuanlan's revenge was blocked by Xiao Hua. Chiu Mingwei saw that Jinhua Mountain was involved in the grievances of the three sects, so he did not dare to force Fu Yumbua too much. He only brought Liao Xianlan out from Jinhua Mountain. When Chiu Mingwei failed to break through to Foundation Establishment late stage, he had no choice but to copulate with Liao Xianlan. Using Liao Xianlan as his human cauldron, he forcibly broke through to Foundation Establishment late stage. Liao Xianlan also benefited from this and directly entered Foundation Establishment early stage. However, the consequence of this kind of forcible advancement was that Liao Xuanlan's cultivation could only remain at Foundation Establishment early stage for the rest of her life. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. He secretly said, no wonder Liao Xianlan suddenly entered Foundation Establishment. This young master used this to guess these two people. It was impossible to guess correctly. Hee fellow Xiao, this is my secret technique. I ask fellow Xiao to accept it. Consider it a small token of my appreciation. Chiu Mingwei said. He stretched out his hand and took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. Ah. Xiao Hua stared blankly. He didn't have such thoughts. Knowing that Chiu Mingwei had misunderstood, he unconsciously turned his head to look at Xue Xue. Xue Xue was currently looking down and didn't even look at him. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Chiu. Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly and he reached out to receive it. Chiu Mingwei was delighted in his heart when he saw Xiao Hua receive the jade slip, and he stood up and said, since the enmity between my wife and sect Master Fu has been exposed, then I won't stay here any longer. Farewell. Alright then. Xiao Hua stood up and returned the greeting. He casually said, actually there's no harm in trying out Gung Mountain's Liao clan's pill refining technique. Even Head Fu was able to establish the Heavenly Talisman sect. Since fellow Taoist Liao has fellow Taoist Chiu's support, what's there to fear? Liao Xuanlan's face lit up with joy. She bowed toward Xiao Hua and said, Senior Zhao's shout was like being enlightened. This junior was blindly thinking of inheriting Gung Mountain's Liao family's talisman crafting technique, and neglected my husband's help. In the future this junior will try to refine pills. If I succeed, I still have to thank Senior for his kindness today. Chapter 2099. Haha, no problem, no problem. Xiao Hua laughed casually. He was just interested in the Liao family's alchemy technique, but he didn't know if it was complete or not. After Chiu Mingwei and Liao Xianlan left, only Zhong Yejing, an outsider, was left. The others were familiar with each other in Jinhua Mountain. Xiao Hua smiled and said, fellow Taoist Zhong, please wait outside for a while. I have something to discuss with Master Fu and the others. I will go with you to the Zhong family immediately. Yes, I understand. Zhong Yejing replied with a smile before walking out of the room. Seeing that there were no outsiders in the guest hall, Xiao Hua asked his last doubt. Master Fu, I still have some doubts. Do I have to ask? Senior Xiao, what sect Master Fu? You can just call me Fu. Song De smiled and said, my Heavenly Talisman sect's talisman technique and cultivation method are all from Senior Xiao. Why are you so polite? Ah, Xiao Hua shook his head. Those are all Master Fu's own. They have nothing to do with me. I have some doubts. Didn't Fu Yumbua say that Master Fu, Fu Zhu and Fu Ho? Oh, so that's it. With a sudden realization, he looked at his two twin wives with a very sweet look in his eyes. He then transmitted a few words to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's face showed a look of realization. He nodded and said with a smile, since you're not directly related by blood, that's the best. This Zhao's wives have been thinking about this all the way, and have often sighed for you. So the confused cultivator in the Black Forest is Senior Xiao? Fu Feng had been suspicious and asked hurriedly. Haha, yes. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I met Song Dao in Shi country and heard that he came to Meng country. Since Elder Fu also came, I naturally came too. I know how bad it is to owe someone something. That's because Senior Xiao has a noble character. If it was someone else, he would have taken it himself. Song De smiled apologetically. Well, Elder Fu, since the grudge has been revealed, the disciples of Jinhua Mountain will stay in White Bamboo Mountain for a few more days. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Now, I have a few words to say to Master Fu. Yes, I'll go out now. Fu Feng said with a smile. I also hope that the Fu clan can flourish and prosper. After everyone had left, Xiaohua's expression turned serious as he said, That's right. Listen carefully. The reason why I supported you earlier was to help you eliminate the enemies in front of you. It can be considered as giving your heavenly talisman sect a buffer. This Xiao has never thought of blocking your heavenly talisman sect. Although Tsong Cheng was depressed in his heart, he didn't show it on his face. He cupped his hands and said, Junior understands Senior's painstaking efforts. For Senior to take care of Junior like this, Junior is already endlessly grateful. Yes, after all, you and I are fated to meet. Xiaohua nodded. Sect Master Fu has used this Xiao's name to fend off strong enemies in the beginning. However, if Sect Master Fu does anything shameless, this Xiao will definitely not show mercy. Thank you, Senior. An overjoyed expression appeared on Tsongda's face as he said, Actually, if Senior Xiao is willing, this Junior's heavenly talisman sect can let Senior become the sect master. Aha, there's no need. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves. Why would he care about a small sect like this? Then he waved his hand and took out a storage pouch. He handed it to Tsongda and said, This Xiao didn't know that Sect Master Fu had established a sect, so I don't have any gifts. Just take this as a token of my sincerity. Hehe, there's no need. Tsongda politely declined, but he still took the pouch. However, when he opened the storage pouch, he couldn't help but be stunned. He muttered, Foundation establishment pills, spirit stones, spirit herbs, and some rice? Tsongda raised his head. His eyes were filled with sincerity as he said, Senior Xiao, this Junior won't speak empty words. These things are too precious to Junior and the Heavenly Talisman sect. Moreover, they are too important. This Junior didn't expect Senior to give Junior so many things. This Junior really can't express the excitement in my heart right now. Forget it. Since you don't speak empty words, this Xiao won't speak any empty words either. Xiaohua patted Tsongda's shoulder and said, You and I are old acquaintances. In the past you also took care of this Xiao. Since this Xiao can help you, why wouldn't I? This Xiao also knows that you have great talent and great ambitions. You want to achieve great things on Xiaoyu continent. Today I've said many times that everything you do must be worthy of your conscience. Yes, this Junior will definitely remember. Tsongda said, This Junior will personally take the seeds in this storage pouch with my wife. This Junior will definitely complete Senior's task properly. Good. This Xiao will take his leave now. Xiaohua stared at Tsongda. He didn't know what to think. I hope you can keep your words. Senior, you're leaving now? Tsongda said anxiously. You won't stay for a few more days? This Junior still wants to listen to Senior's teachings. Xiaohua understood Tsongda's thoughts. He muttered to himself for a moment and said, Tsongda, it's not that this Xiao doesn't want to help you build your foundation. You also saw that my wife is also at the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining. She also hasn't built her foundation. However, building one's foundation is a fated chance. Everyone is different, so there's nothing special to learn from. And this Xiao's foundation building is also different from others, so there's nothing I can teach you. Tsongda's face was filled with disappointment, but he still had a smile on his face. This Junior is already happy that Senior Xiao can think of this. As he said this, Tsongda clapped his hands and took out a worn-out silk cloth. He handed it over to Xiaohua and said, Senior Xiao has done so much for this Junior really has nothing to repay. This Junior also guessed that although Senior's cultivation base is already at the core formation realm, this Junior and the others can still sense that Senior's cultivation base is at the foundation establishment realm. I'm afraid this is the reason for this Junior's so-called crossing the sea of deception cultivation technique. This is a record of the cultivation technique. It belongs to the Senior who raised this Junior, Uncle Xiong. This is the Senior's legacy. This Junior treasures this item very much. However, if this Junior doesn't give this item to Senior, this Junior will feel apologetic. Is that so? Xiaohua knew that there were some flaws in this crossing the sea of deception, so he already had the idea to make up for it. After receiving the item, he carefully looked at it and nodded. I know your intentions. I'll just make a copy of this cultivation technique. I'll leave this item to you. If it's the complete cultivation technique, Senior Xiao can just make a copy. This Junior will definitely keep this item. Tsongda waved his hand and said, But this silk cloth is damaged. If there's something wrong with the copy, I'm afraid it'll be detrimental to Senior's cultivation. Senior should just keep it. Hearing this, Xiaohua looked at Songde's sincere expression and made a decision in his heart. He nodded and said, since it's like this Xiao will accept it. Then Xiaohua put away the silk cloth and walked out of the guest hall. He saw Shui whispering to Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet. They seemed to be very close. Shui heard Xiaohua coming out and hurriedly went over to greet him. Let's go, Xiaohua said with a smile. Everything has been explained. The Heavenly Talisman sect and Jinhua Mountain's Fu clan can be considered to have a good start. In the future, everything will be under Fu clan's control. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian.com to vote for it. Chapter 2100. Yunda and Fu Feng tried their best to urge him to stay, but Xiaohua only smiled and didn't stop. Now that he had the status of a senior, everyone was respectful in front of him. He was far from being free and unfettered when he was with Shui, so Xiaohua didn't want to stay here any longer. Zhong Yejing naturally cupped her hands and bid farewell to Yunda and the others. To be honest, she wasn't interested in the Heavenly Talisman sect at all. This kind of cultivation sect that couldn't even be compared to an ordinary cultivation family, or a small sect that was created to satisfy the selfish desires of a sect master. There were many of them in Meng country. She didn't dare to say that she had seen 100 of them, but there were at least dozens of them. These sects were like morning dew, but they would disappear under the sun. Zhong Yejing didn't understand why Xiaohua said those words for the sake of the Heavenly Talisman sect's survival. After all, on the Dawn Rain continent, cultivators were as numerous as the hairs on an ox, and the karma between them was even more chaotic. Xiaohua would pay too much for what he said today. However, after waiting for more than half a day, under Zhong Yejing's lead, the three of them didn't fly too far. However, Xiaohua's actions made Zhong Yejing realize something. Xiaohua didn't fly by himself, but released his divine sense. Every time he flew for a while, he would stop and let Zhong Yejing and Shui wait while he flew away. Sometimes he was far away, and Zhong Yejing's divine sense couldn't reach him. Sometimes he was close, and Zhong Yejing could see clearly with her divine sense. Xiaohua sat there and actually did what he instructed Yunda to do, and gave some good seeds to the villagers who were farming. Is this still a cultivator? Zhong Yejing was enlightened, but she still couldn't understand. Since she was young, she knew that she was a cultivation disciple and had never heard of secular people. When she met these secular people during her travels, she was also instilled with the concept of ants by her clansmen. Therefore, not only did she not know that secular people had to rely on farming to make a living, she also didn't know that secular people needed to rely on mulberry and cotton to keep warm. There was no need to even mention the fact that the rice was extinct and the fine variety was extinct. Senior Xiao, this method of yours, can it increase cultivation? Zhong Yejing seemed to have caught on to something. She waited until Xiaohua came back in a hurry and asked, could it be that you have such a high cultivation, but you relied on this to benefit from it? Ah, Xiaohua laughed heartily. He glanced at Shui and said, if this can increase one's cultivation, then why would cultivators go back to cultivate? Do these secular people still need to farm? Then, why is Senior doing such a useless thing? Zhong Yejing finally voiced out her doubts. The first thing that the head of the Zhong family told us after we became sensible was to improve our cultivation by any means necessary. As long as you have a superhuman cultivation, all your means will be legitimate. Xiaohua actually didn't want to explain too much to her. There were some things that if other people understood, they would understand even if you didn't say a word. But if there were some things that other people didn't understand, they wouldn't understand even if you were eloquent. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua stretched out his right hand and patted his chest. He said with a smile, nothing else but my conscience. Conscience? Zhong Yejing was even more puzzled. She secretly said, conscience, this thing, how many spirit stones is it worth? Senior's wisdom really benefits this junior. Zhong Yejing didn't refute Xiaohua. She smiled apologetically and said, just now Senior said that you know Zhong Xiuhan and Zhong Haoran from my Zhong family. What's going on? This junior hasn't seen them for a long time. Xiaohua was not in a hurry to answer. Instead he asked, the 2 gold leaves that fellow Zhong mentioned, are they still in the Zhong family? They should be. Zhong Yejing nodded and said, this thing was taken out by Junior's third uncle Zhong Peiyuan several times. First, he wanted to find out where this thing came from. Second, he wanted to use this thing to exchange for the Qianmo secret stone, but he failed several times. So, third uncle threw this thing in the ancestral hall and never took it again. If this junior remembers correctly, no one took it away. And very good. Xiaohua nodded. This Xiao met your third uncle at the auction in Weeping Moon City. However, this Xiao didn't know that fellow Taoist was Zhong Peiyuan. I didn't even know that he was a disciple of Meng country's Zhong family. And Zhong Xiuhan and Zhong Haoran were also met by this Xiao when this Xiao went to the netherworld to gain experience. If fellow Zhong didn't mention the Qianmo secret stone just now, this Xiao wouldn't have thought about asking fellow Taoist about the gold leaf. And this Xiao didn't expect that the gold leaf that this Xiao had been looking for a long time was actually in Zhong Xiuhan and Zhong Haoran's home. Yeah, the matters of the world change unpredictably. How could it be something that we cultivators can rashly guess? Zhong Yejing sighed and said, I didn't expect that I would meet Senior Xiao when I just wanted to exchange for a small piece of Qianmo's secret stone from Su Hong. Not only do you have the Qianmo's secret stone, but you also have several other materials for refining weapons. Senior Xiao even knows how to refine weapons. Hehe, fellow Taoist Zhong, how long will it take from here to Yunqing? Xiao Hua looked into the distance and smiled. Not too close, about 10 days of travel. Zhong Yejing said carefully. Okay, I don't need to be too anxious. Xiao Hua said, but without waiting for him to finish, he immediately smiled and said, Hehe, wait a moment, this Xiao will go again? Shui Shui's eyes were filled with love and she looked at Xiao Hua hurriedly flying away with satisfaction. Zhong Yejing stood at the side, and her eyes were full of helplessness. Just like this, the three of them didn't fly fast. On the evening of the third day, Shui Shui and Xiao Hua were quietly cultivating. Xiao Hua said in a low voice, Wife, this husband has some matters to attend to, and will be back at dawn. Husband, please go, this concubine will cultivate by herself. Shui Shui didn't ask what Xiao Hua had to do, and smiled very virtuously. Okay, Xiao Hua laid down the rabbit formation, then used the earth escape technique to leave. Before the sun had even risen, he quietly returned and once again took out the concealment technique that was given to him, carefully studying and comprehending it. Shui Shui didn't find it strange, but the heavenly talisman sect of White Bamboo Mountain was in chaos. Originally, after Xiao Hua and the others left, Song, Fu Feng and the others became more and more harmonious. Fu Feng even taught Song how to make talismans, and Lu Yun also taught Fu Zhu and Fu Ba how to cultivate. It seemed that the disciples of Golden Mount Hua were going to stay in the Heavenly Talisman sect for a while. However, on the night of the third day after Xiao Hua left, a short foundation establishment middle stage cultivator suddenly broke into White Bamboo Mountain. Not only did he want to take Song's life, he also wanted to capture Fu Zhu and Fu Ba as concubines. Naturally, Song, Fu Feng and Lu Yun resisted with all their strength, and planned to perish together. That short cultivator's methods were very powerful, and with just a few ordinary techniques, the three of them were forced to a dead end. Just when the three of them were in despair, that cultivator gave up on the technique, and took out a strange pitch-black stick, wanting to beat the three of them to death. Strangely, when the three of them disregarded life and death and prepared to make a final resistance, the three of them discovered that their true qi, which had not changed for several years or even several decades, suddenly showed signs of condensing, and the three of them simultaneously showed signs of building their foundation. The mood of the three of them could be imagined, both happy and sad and half happy and half sad. What was even more strange was that at this time, that cultivator seemed to have realized something and said, Damn it, I made a mistake, I made a mistake. Immediately after, he threw down a few spiritual herbs and flew away. For the three of them this was a great joy. The three of them did not have time to figure out that person's purpose, and each of them left White Bamboo Mountain to find a place to build their foundation, and quietly build their foundation. Not to mention the pleasant surprise of the others, Xiao Hua's journey, which was supposed to take 10 days, took a full 15 days because of his delay. On this day he saw a large city in front of him. There was a bustling crowd, towering city walls and guards in bright armor. Xiao Hua knew that this was Yun City. Sure enough, Zhong Yejing said with a smile, Senior Xiao, this is Cloud City, the foundation of my Zhong family. More than half of the industries in this city belong to my Zhong family. More than half of the people in this city belong to my Zhong family. Oh, are they all surnamed Zhong? Xiao Hua asked curiously. I've been to Yu City before, but I didn't know much about it. Senior, please understand that I said belong to, not are. Zhong Yejing smiled apologetically. Most of the people in Cloud City are secular people, tenants, workers or other identities of the big families surnamed Zhong in the city. These big families surnamed Zhong are the disciples of my Zhong family who have shallow aptitudes and can't cultivate, and they manage these secular industries. There are no cultivation families in Yu City, so there aren't many secular people. All the families and sects have disciples there. Oh, I understand. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. Then the Zhong family must not be in Cloud City, right? Yes, I'll send a message now, asking the family head to come and welcome me. Zhong Yejing said respectfully, all the disciples of my Zhong family are in Zhongling Mountain Village, south of Cloud City. With that, Zhong Yejing sent out a red messaging charm and asked again, Senior Xiao, do you want to wait in Cloud City? Once the family head receives the message, he will come and welcome you personally. No need. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I'm not that arrogant, let's hurry. Don't make the Zhong family head too tired. Yes, I'll listen to Senior's instructions. Zhong Yejing had observed Xiao Hua for the past 10 days and knew that he didn't have a strange temper. He was even very approachable and his attitude was far from being proportional to his strength. However, after flying for a long time, not only did Zhong Yejing not see the family head coming to welcome her, but she also didn't receive a messaging charm. Her face became a little ugly. Senior Xiao, I'm afraid that the family head can't come out to welcome me because of some family matters. Please forgive me. Zhong Yejing said carefully. Well said, well said. Xiao Hua waved his sleeves casually. Your Zhong family has a lot of mundane affairs. Your family head must be very busy every day and can't be compared to me. Even if he doesn't come out to welcome me, it's normal. Zhong Yejing smiled apologetically, but she was muttering in her heart. Although she didn't clearly explain what happened in the messaging charm, she did tell him that Xiao Hua's strength was outstanding, and that even a foundation establishment late-stage cultivator had to admit defeat. Finally, she especially said that Xiao Hua had the Qian Mo secret stone in his hands, and asked the family head to come and welcome him. There was a patch of green grass, a small pond that rippled in the wind, and countless tall and sturdy trees that stood upright like guards. A villa with green bricks, green tiles, green grass, and white walls appeared in the midst of the green leaves that were like waves of the sea. Xiao Hua knew that this must be the Zhong family's Zhongling Mountain Village. Chapter 2101. Because of politeness, Xiao Hua didn't release his divine sense. He just looked from afar with a thoughtful expression. Senior. Zhong Yejing was too embarrassed to say anything. Junior will send another summoning talisman. No need. Xiao Hua looked at Xue Xue and smiled. You really don't need to trouble yourself. The corner of Zhong Yejing's mouth twitched a few times. She smiled apologetically and said, Oh, okay. At this moment, a divine sense quickly swept over from the villa. When it passed by Xiao Hua and the others, it swept over Xiao Hua several times. However, Xiao Hua's expression was the same as usual, as if he didn't notice it at all. Second uncle? Zhong Yejing's expression changed slightly. She looked at Xiao Hua uneasily and whispered, Senior Xiao, this is Junior's second uncle Zhong Peifu. Junior doesn't know why Master didn't come. Xiao Hua was the same as before. He really was the same. He was far from what Zhong Yejing was worried about. A tall old cultivator flew over from the green leaves. He looked a little annoyed and impatient. He flew very fast. There seemed to be a few aura-refining disciples following behind him. They had already been left far behind. Second uncle, Zhong Yejing saw that Zhong Peifu's expression wasn't right. She hurriedly flew over and bowed respectfully. Is there something urgent in the family? Why didn't Master come out? Zhong Peifu waved his hand and scolded, What does a little girl like you know? Do you think that Master has to personally welcome any cultivator who comes to visit our Zhong family? Second uncle. Zhong Yejing felt extremely wronged, but she didn't dare to say anything. She could only smile apologetically and say, This is Xiao Hua, Senior Xiao. Jing already said clearly on the summoning talisman that Misty Cloud sects Yun Qinglai and Yun Qingfeng, as well as Su family Su Hong, suffered in front of Senior Xiao. Moreover, Jing personally saw a late Foundation establishment cultivator begging for mercy in front of Senior Xiao. Zhong Peifu waved his hand and coldly glanced at Xiao Hua. He said, This old man will naturally judge. As he spoke, Zhong Peifu patted his forehead and released the pressure of a late Foundation establishment cultivator. Second uncle, what are you doing? Zhong Yejing was greatly shocked. She didn't expect that Zhong Peifu would actually release his pressure as soon as he came up. This was simply provoking Xiao Hua. But to Zhong Yejing's and Zhong Peifu's surprise, Xiao Hua didn't release any pressure at all, allowing Zhong Peifu to firmly suppress him. What? This cultivator didn't resist at all? Isn't this putting your life in the hands of others? Zhong Peifu didn't understand and felt even more uneasy. He looked at Xiao Hua's calm gaze as if he was nothing. If I wanted to take his life now, it would be as easy as lifting a finger. Zhong Peifu said hesitantly, but I have no enmity with him and he was invited by little Jing. How can I do it? Zhong Peifu was in a bit of a dilemma. His original intention was to probe Xiao Hua's cultivation level. He had also stopped Zhong Yejing's transmission. He knew that Xiao Hua's cultivation level was only at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. However, pressure couldn't be faked. As soon as Xiao Hua released his pressure, he would immediately know. But he didn't expect that Xiao Hua would ignore him. At this time, if Zhong Peifu withdrew his pressure, it would be tantamount to slapping his own face. Compared to Xiao Hua directly getting angry or just defeating him, he would lose face. Xiao Hua's move was really sharp, like a needle hidden in silk floss. Don't tell me. I have to make a move. Zhong Peifu's eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness. Xiao Hua clearly saw Zhong Peifu's fierceness. He knew that he couldn't tease this late-stage Foundation establishment realm old man anymore. Thus, Xiao Hua said indifferently, "Fellow Taoist Zhong, since you're probing, then stop before going too far. Don't do anything that would cause you to pull chestnuts out of the fire." Xiao Hua. Imperial Thunder Sect's Xiao Hua? At this time, a voice sounded, "Second Granduncle, this is Xiao Hua, fellow Taoist Xiao Hua, whom I met when I was traveling in the country of Xi. He is a good person. He gave me medicinal pills. Please show mercy." Xiao Hua smiled. Wasn't this the voice of the honest Zhong Haoren who was suppressed by Zhong Xiuhan? Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple? Zhong Peifu was shocked. Previously, when he heard Xiao Hua's warning, he was hesitant to withdraw his pressure. Now, with Zhong Haoren's mediation, he immediately withdrew it. He even cupped his hands and said, "So it's a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. This Zhong didn't know, please forgive me." That's right, the Imperial Thunder Sect was a big sect in the country of Xi. It wasn't something the Zhong family could afford to offend. Even if Xiao Hua was really only an early-stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator. Well said, well said. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said calmly, Senior Xiao." Zhong Haoren also flew to Xiao Hua. He first greeted him very intimately, but when he saw that Xiao Hua was already in the Foundation establishment realm, he was slightly embarrassed and hurriedly changed his greeting. Xiao Hua had a very good impression of this little cultivator. He said with a smile, "Zhong Haoren, your progress is not small. Now you're already at the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining. You'll be able to step into the Foundation establishment realm soon. Congratulations." A trace of pride flitted across Zhong Haoren's face, but it was immediately replaced by a slightly desolate expression. He smiled apologetically and said, "How can Junior compare to Senior Xiao? Junior only advanced from the 10th layer of qi refining to the 12th layer, but Senior immediately entered the Foundation establishment realm. This is what Junior yearned for day and night. Everyone has their own destiny. You can't force it." Xiao Hua smiled. He then looked behind him and saw several unfamiliar disciples. He asked again, "What about Zhong Xiuhan? Has she already entered the Foundation establishment realm?" "No." The desolate expression on Zhong Haoren's face became even more pronounced. "Senior sister hasn't entered the Foundation establishment realm yet. And then she must be at the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining." Xiao Hua nodded. "Her aptitude seems to be better than yours." "Yes indeed, but..." Zhong Haoren seemed to want to say something, but Zhong Peifu's gaze swept over him. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, my Zhong family's patriarch couldn't come to welcome you because of some worldly affairs. I hope fellow Taoist can understand. Come, fellow Taoist, please. Patriarch is waiting for you in the reception hall." As he said that, Zhong Peifu gave a meaningful glance to a quick-witted disciple behind Zhong Haoren. That disciple hastily turned around and flew away. Xiao Hua followed Zhong Peifu and flew up. Shui followed behind him. Zhong Haoren hesitated for a moment then stopped. He wanted to wait for Zhong Yejing to leave before following them. However, Xiao Hua turned around and said, "Zhong Haoren, your eye's old acquaintance. Come and accompany I." Zhong Haoren's face lit up with joy. Just as he was about to fly up, Zhong Peifu gave him another order. Cough cough. "Haoren, you're a junior. You can't accompany fellow Taoist Xiao. Follow behind your martial aunt Jing." "Yes, grandson understands." Zhong Haoren was silent. He nodded very calmly and silently stopped in midair. He waited for the others to fly up and he followed behind them. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please." Zhong Peifu pointed at the scenery on the side as he walked. He said something in a low voice, but there wasn't any respect in his tone. After all, Xiao Hua was only in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. And he was at most a late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. Even if he was a disciple of the lightning-controlling sect, he couldn't really be respected by a late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. Chapter 2102. Zhong Yejing, who was behind Xiaohua, clearly understood what was going on. She couldn't help but feel somewhat anxious in her heart. This Xiaohua was truly somewhat mysterious. Not only did he use a divine ability, but his actions of helping the people of the secular world made Zhong Yejing feel that Xiaohua was absolutely not a simple late-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator. Not long after, Xiaohua followed Zhong Peifu to the Zhongling mountain villa. It was a rather large gate, several times larger than the one Xiaohua had seen in the Kai family in Luyang. Moreover, just like the Kai family, there was a vermilion gate in the middle. In fact, it was actually a plaque. The word Zhong on the plaque was extremely large. It also looked strange and different from the usual style. It actually looked somewhat like an armor inscription. On both sides of the main door were two side doors. Although they were also vermilion red, they were much smaller. At this moment, the side door on the left was already wide open. Several aura refining disciples were standing there, dressed in bright clothes. Fellow Taoist Xiao. Zhong Peifu pointed at the main door and smiled. My Zhong clan's clan head is a golden core cultivator. Therefore, the main door of my Zhong clan can only be opened by the clan head when a golden core cultivator or above comes to visit the Zhong clan. Fellow Taoist Xiao, although you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, you still have to go through this side door. And it's fine. Xiaohua seemed to have an extremely good temper. He didn't care about this kind of vulgar etiquette and nodded slightly. Please. Zhong Peifu gestured with his hand as he led Xiaohua through the side door. Welcome to our Zhong clan, Senior Xiao. Several aura refining disciples bowed together. Their loud and clear voices soared into the sky. Ah. Xiaohua slightly nodded. Fortunately. Seeing that Xiaohua's face didn't have any particular displeasure, Zhong Yejing's heart calmed down a little. Among the cultivation aristocratic families, Xiaohua had been to Luyang's Kai family and Misty Mountain's Ling family. Obviously, the Zhong family structure was similar to the Kai family's, but the Zhong family's manner was far from comparable to the Kai family's. Not to mention the area it occupied and not to mention the pavilions, terraces and pavilions, but from time to time, immortal birds would appear and from time to time, there would be strange flowers and plants by the side of the lake. This made Xiaohua's eyes light up, and he knew that the Zhong family's foundation was also extraordinary. No matter what, the Zhong family's patriarch, Zhong Tianyao, was also a golden core cultivator. If the Zhong family did not have a solid foundation, it would be impossible for them to have such a patriarch. There was no need to elaborate on the scenery of the Zhongling mountain villa. Under Zhong Peifu's guidance, Xiaohua arrived at a unique courtyard. Seeing Zhong Peifu walk straight in, Zhong Yejing frowned slightly. She sighed in her heart and regained her composure. She had already done what she could and said what she needed to say. This was all arranged by the patriarch and she had nothing to say. Inside the courtyard was a quiet hall. It was also quite large. An old man with white hair sat in the middle of the hall. He was holding a book in his hand and his eyebrows were slightly furrowed. It was unknown whether he was reading or thinking. Beside the old man sat a skinny old man. He was in the late stage of foundation establishment. He had a bitter expression on his face, but it was impossible to tell what his expression was. Reporting to Patriarch, this is Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder sect. He is the cultivator that Jing brought here. Zhong Peifu bowed and said. Oh, so you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Zhong Tianyao put down the book in his hand and swept his gaze over Xiaohua. At the same time, he also used a spell to sense Xiaohua's cultivation. He smiled and said, no wonder he could scare off a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. This disciple of a large sect is indeed formidable. Junior Xiaohua greets Senior Zhong. Xiaohua didn't dare to neglect and bowed to greet Zhong Tianyao. And sit down. Zhong Tianyao pointed at Xiaohua and said, thank you, Senior, for granting me a seat. Xiaohua modestly sat beside Shueshue. Shueshue lowered her head and didn't say a word. However, she was somewhat angry in her heart. She understood in her heart that even if she, an aura-refining cultivator, didn't reveal her identity, not to mention Xiaohua. Since she had already revealed her identity, she represented the Imperial Thunder sect and the Zhong family to receive her in the real welcoming hall. Of course, the etiquette of an aura-refining cultivator towards a golden core cultivator was universal in the Xiaoyu continent, regardless of your identity. Zhong Tianyao receiving Xiaohua here was rude in terms of etiquette. In terms of attitude he was looking down on Xiaohua. When the Zhong family disciple served the spirit tea, the cultivator at the side said, Jing what you said in the summoning talisman was unclear. Now, explain the ins and outs of the matter in front of the master. Why are you with the disciples of Misty Cloud sect and Su family? Yes, third uncle. Zhong Yejing glanced at Xiaohua and was slightly apologetic. It seemed that there were some problems because she said something without Xiaohua's consent. Zhong Yejing's expression naturally didn't escape Zhong Tianyao's eyes, or perhaps Zhong Yejing wanted the clan head to see it. Following which, Zhong Yejing briefly recounted the matter of her looking for Su Hong, as well as the matter of White Bamboo Mountain. Of course, regarding the matter of the talisman, Zhong Yejing didn't mention it, only saying that Su Hong invited her to help. Zhong Peiyuan and the others heard clearly and knew that Zhong Yejing was hiding something in her words. However, they didn't ask too much. They only heard Zhong Peiyuan ask faintly, so, Su Hong's Qianmo secret stone has already fallen into Xiaohua's hands? His gaze, however, drifted towards Xiaohua. Yes. Good, it's been hard on you. Jing, you can leave. Zhong Peiyuan nodded. But third uncle Senior Xiao. Zhong Yejing didn't know what Xiaohua was thinking. She didn't dare to mention the matter of the gold leaf in advance. At this time she was a little anxious. It's fellow Taoist Xiao, not Senior Xiao. Zhong Peiyuan said faintly, although my Yunqing Zhong family can't be compared to a famous sect, it's still a famous cultivation family in Meng country. There's no need to lower your status. Yes, third uncle. Zhong Yejing felt a little wronged, but she didn't dare to contradict. She bowed, looked at Xiaohua again and retreated. You all can leave too. Following the order, the other disciples also left. Xiaohua. Zhong Peiyuan stared at Xiaohua and asked, I don't want to know what you did at White Bamboo Mountain. Let me ask you, you took the Qianmo secret stone from Su Hong's hands. Do you want to exchange it with my Zhong family? How do you know that my Zhong family needs Qianmo secret stone? Do you want to use Qianmo secret stone to threaten my Zhong family? Xiaohua was very funny. Zhong Yejing could clearly explain the matter, but Zhong Peiyuan didn't let her finish. Moreover, without waiting for him to speak, Zhong Peiyuan self-righteously put the hat of threatening on his head. Could it be that he really thinks that because his cultivation is high, he can distinguish right from wrong and can see through things at a glance? Xiaohua couldn't help but criticize. However, Zhong Tianyao and Zhong Peifu both stared at Xiaohua without blinking. Their eyes were full of vigilance, as if what Zhong Peiyuan said was their inner thoughts. Xiaohua was very helpless. He cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoist Zhong misunderstood. Then Xiaohua told the matter of him meeting Zhong Peiyuan at the auction in Chiyu City. Finally, he smiled apologetically and said, I didn't know that Miyu was fellow Taoist Zhong. Just as fellow Taoist Zhong said, when I heard that she wanted to exchange Qianmo secret stone with Su Hong, my heart moved and I remembered this matter. How did you know, Haoran? Zhong Peifu's eyes were still flickering as he asked in a low voice. This is even more of a coincidence. Xiaohua smiled and said, I met him when I went to the netherworld after leaving Chiyu City. And this old man knows. Zhong Peiyuan waved his hand and said, Haoran seems to have mentioned this before, but this old man was in a bad mood at that time and didn't remember carefully. Then Zhong Peiyuan looked at Xiaohua and asked, So, fellow Taoist Zhao's purpose is the 2 gold foil of my Zhong family? Yes, it's the 2 gold foil. Xiaohua clapped his hands and took out a few pieces of Qianmo secret stone. He smiled and said, This Xiao found a few pieces of Qianmo secret stone in the past few years to find the owner of the gold foil to exchange. Now as a coincidence, please take a look, Senior Zhong. Unexpectedly, Zhong Tianyao didn't seem to be interested in the Qianmo secret stone. He scanned it with his divine sense and said indifferently, Actually, the gold foil of my Zhong family is exchanged for the Qianmo secret stone. The main thing is that I want to know what this gold foil is and what it's used for. This. Xiaohua was startled. He looked at Zhong Tianyao a few times and shook his head. Sorry, this is this Xiao's business. Forgive this Xiao for not telling you. Oh. Zhong Tianyao narrowed his eyes and said, Since you can't tell this old man what the gold foil is used for, then this old man can't exchange with you with the gold foil. Senior Zhong, Xiaohua was anxious and said, The gold foil is just a dead thing in the Zhong family. The Zhong family doesn't need it at all. Why can't you exchange it? Could it be that the Zhong family doesn't want to use the Qianmo secret stone to repair magic tools? Repairing magic tools or not is my Zhong family's business. Zhong Peiyuan sneered and said, "Could it be that fellow Taoist Xiao wants to forcefully exchange with my Zhong family? Why can't I? Aren't the so-called big cultivation sects all like this? Without resorting to trickery, how can they become a big sect? How can they dominate a region?" Zhong Peifu said sarcastically, "Although the Imperial Thunder sect is far away in the country of Xi, their fame is spread throughout the entire Xiaoyu continent. Their disciples can even be arrogant in Meng country. What do you two fellow Taoists mean?" Xiao Hua sneered, "If you don't want to exchange, then don't exchange. Why do you have to speak so viciously? These words are related to this Xiao's sect. Fellow Taoist, do you mind this Xiao bringing these words back?" "What? Did this Zhong offend the Imperial Thunder sect with just a few words?" Zhong Peiyuan stood up and said angrily, "Just based on these few words? Imperial Thunder sect dares to come to my Meng country and exterminate my Zhong family? Do you think you have this opportunity?" "Ah." Xiao Hua stood up and laughed loudly. He really felt that it was funny. A late Foundation establishment cultivator, no matter what, had a lifespan of several hundred years. He had seen many more things than him, but why did he look like a loose cultivator at the early qi refining stage? He didn't know the gravity of his words. "This Xiao wants to see what ability your Zhong clan has to keep this Xiao here," Xiao Hua coldly said after he finished laughing. At White Bamboo Mountain, you injured Su Hong and intimidated a late Foundation establishment cultivator. Was it just for Jing Er to see? Zhong Tianyao said indifferently, "Even if you are a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, even if your cultivation is comparable to a late Foundation establishment cultivator, don't forget that this old man is a gold core cultivator. In this old man's eyes, you are just a child. Besides, without the clan head here, this old man and two late Foundation establishment cultivators can't kill a late Foundation establishment cultivator? Not to mention an qi refining cultivator?" Zhong Peiyuan said even more arrogantly, "Even if the late Foundation establishment cultivator escapes, will this qi refining female cultivator still be alive?" Chapter 2103. Hearing these words, Xiao Hua's face instantly turned cold, truly cold. There was no longer a trace of indifference in his original tone. "If fellow Taoist Zhong wants to try, then feel free to make a move. I don't have the confidence to protect my wife in front of a core formation cultivator. However, I am confident that I can escape from the hands of a golden core adept. As long as I leave, other than the golden core adepts of the Zhong family, I will not touch them. As for the other disciples, I will kill them all." "Are you threatening me?" Zhong Qinyao's face was even colder. If his gaze could kill, it would have poked many holes in Xiao Hua's body. At this moment, the dignity of a core formation cultivator was facing the provocation of an initial stage Foundation establishment cultivator. "Senior Zhong, can't you see that this junior is explaining the facts to fellow Taoist Zhong?" Xiao Hua said word by word. "What this junior said is the truth. I didn't speak a word of nonsense." Good. Zhong Peiyuan laughed from extreme anger. He couldn't help but stand up. "Why are all the disciples of cultivation sects so arrogant? I won't say anything about the core formation cultivator from before. He opened his mouth and said that he would destroy my Zhong clan. You, an insignificant initial stage Foundation establishment cultivator, actually dares to be arrogant in front of me. Today I'm going to stake it all. Even if I have to destroy jade and common stone, so what?" Xiao Hua sneered. "Although words can be said casually, your hands can't be stretched out carelessly. Once you make a move, the consequences will be very serious." Seeing that Xiao Hua only spoke and didn't make any moves, he was terrifyingly calm. Sure enough, Zhong Peiyuan was somewhat hesitant. The thought of stretching out his hand to release pressure could only flash through his mind again and again. Since the words had already been said, if he made a move, there was no possibility of probing. Xiao Hua would definitely go all out in a spurt of energy like a tiger. Seeing Zhong Peiyuan stand up, Zhong Peifu naturally couldn't help but stand up as well. His gaze actually wasn't looking at Xiao Hua, but rather at Shui Shui. Old second, old third. Zhong Tianyao seemed to be doing his utmost to restrain himself. His grizzled hair and beard were trembling. At this moment, he slapped his hand on the chair and said angrily, "You two shut up. You nearly caused trouble before and now you still want to talk. Didn't you hear that the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples want to challenge my Zhong clan? Could it be that you're waiting for me to make a move?" Hearing this, Zhong Peiyuan was pleasantly surprised. He slapped his forehead and released the pressure of a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, Then this old man will teach this arrogant disciple a lesson on behalf of the Imperial Thunder sect. Let him know the principle of respecting high-level cultivators. At the same time, Zhong Peifu wasn't slow either. He had already prepared his aura and slammed it towards Xue Xue. Seeing that the Zhong clan's people were really going to make a move, Xiao Hua was furious. He reached out and pulled Xue Xue's little hand that was stretched out to the side. He transmitted his voice, "Don't use your transcendence energy." Xue Xue originally wanted to use the flight technique, but after hearing Xiao Hua's words she immediately stopped the flow of true qi. However, Xiao Hua's figure flew up, and all of a sudden he pulled Xue Xue into his arms. His other hand clapped, and the pressure of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator was similarly released. With a boom, the pressure of two late-stage foundation establishment cultivators collided with Xiao Hua's pressure, setting off a burst of qi waves. You're actually in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. You've concealed it well. Zhong Tianyao sat steadily on the seat of honor and released his divine sense. There wasn't any surprise on his face and he only coldly snorted. However, what happened next shocked him. In his opinion, under the pressure of two late-stage foundation establishment cultivators, wouldn't Xiao Hua be helpless? Because pressure was something that couldn't be faked. However, Xiao Hua's figure only trembled slightly, and then he swam like a fish. His figure slid slightly, and he flew towards the entrance of the hall. If it was a month ago, Xiao Hua definitely wouldn't have such a method. He would definitely have released his Phoenix Dharma body and resisted. In other words, Xiao Hua had some subtle understanding of the nameless secret art that matched his comprehension in the past 10 days. Although he couldn't further improve in concealing his cultivation level, he had a remarkable ability in evading pressure that others couldn't think of. After coming to my Zhong clan you still want to leave? Zhong Tianyao waved his hand but light flew out. It wasn't Xiao Hua but the four walls of the hall. Magic power rippled on the four walls, and a jade-green brilliance emerged from the center of the four walls. It was divided into two layers, one facing upwards and the other facing downwards, rapidly surging. Seeing that the pressure was ineffective, Zhong Peiyuan rubbed his hands, and several rays of brilliance flew out from his hands. Countless sparks were produced, and they flew towards Xiao Hua's back. Xiao Hua knew that Zhong Tianyao wouldn't directly make a move because of his status. He clapped his hands and the soaring dragon scissors flew out of the space. A golden light flashed, and the soaring dragon scissors directly chopped towards the hall's entrance that was close at hand. With a rumbling sound, the jade-green brilliance that had already flooded the hall's entrance was split apart like a jade wave, and it rolled backwards. Not only that, the sharpness of the soaring dragon scissors also split open the entire hall's entrance. Amidst the sound, the hall's entrance and part of the hard stones were split open by the huge force, as if they were blown apart by a fireball talisman. Three shameless old things. Xiao Hua's figure swayed rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, he already arrived at the hall's entrance. Quick, Zhong Tianyao also couldn't help but be greatly alarmed. He reprimanded in a low voice, and just as he was about to cast a spell, he saw Xiao Hua fling his hand without even turning his head. Hundreds of fireball talismans flew out, precisely blocking Zhong Peiyuan's cluster of sparks. Moreover, within those fireball talismans, there was also a wall of true samadhi fire that Xiao Hua cast. With a rumbling sound, it was as if the mountains were shaking and the earth was quaking. It was as if the entire hall was going to be overturned by the explosion. This explosion and wall of fire just happened to block Zhong Peiyuan and Zhong Peifu. Zhong Qinyao's face slightly changed. He swung his sleeve, covering the entire fireball talisman and wall of fire. Like a whirlwind sweeping away clouds, all the fireballs and wall of fire disappeared. But it was also in this blink of an eye that Xiao Hua and Xue Xue's figures had already rushed out of the hall. By the time Zhong Peiyuan and Zhong Peifu flew out of the hall, Xiao Hua and Xue Xue's figures had already faded. In the sky above the entire Zhongling mountain villa, Xiao Hua's cold and eerie words floated. Since your Zhong family dares to make a move, then this young master won't be polite. Zhong Tianyao, just wait for this young master to kill your Zhong family's disciples one by one. Zhong Peiyuan and Zhong Peifu's noses were crooked from anger. If you say you want to escape, then escape. You actually let out such big words and let the entire Zhongling mountain villa hear it. This was really a naked slap to their own face. How dare you? Zhong Peiyuan shouted. He simply didn't think and didn't even look at Zhong Peifu. His figure swayed and he was about to fly out of the villa. On the other hand, Zhong Peifu's eyes turned and he shouted, Patriarch quickly opened the villa's restrictive spell. If all of you come back. Zhong Qinyao's voice sounded, and his tone was also filled with shame and anger. Chapter 2104. Zhong Peiyuan and Zhong Peifu looked at each other helplessly. Gritting their teeth, they floated down and landed in front of the hall that no longer had a door. At this time, several Zhong family disciples sneakily poked their heads out and looked over, not knowing what happened. What are you looking at? Why aren't you cleaning this place up? Zhong Peifu glared at them, an indescribable feeling in his heart. When they stood in front of Zhong Tianyao, they stole a glance at Zhong Tianyao's gloomy face. You talk too much. Will you die if you speak less? Zhong Tianyao shouted at Zhong Peiyuan. If you didn't stir up trouble, would this old man be so passive? It was like this before and it was like this just now. Family head, Zhong Peiyuan felt extremely wronged. Boy was also unwilling. Who knows where he leaked the news and let that guy know? And this Imperial Thunder sect brat is even more arrogant than that guy. Cultivation sects are all sanctimonious things. Zhong Tianyao snorted coldly, but they are powerful, not something our cultivation sects can compare to. We can't afford to offend them, but can't we hide? Which cultivator would be able to tolerate such words from you? Moreover, Imperial Thunder sect is famous for their flying techniques. You also saw it just now. Xiao Hua is only a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. His flying speed far surpasses yours. If this old man doesn't use his divine ability, I'm afraid I can't catch up to him. Zhong Tianyao didn't say anything. With a wave of his sleeve, he flew out of the hall. Second brother, you say, what's all this about? Zhong Peiyuan waved his hand, and the chairs beside him were destroyed. He sat down, picked up the teacup beside him, and drank the spiritual tea in one breath. Who knows? Zhong Peifu also gritted his teeth and sat down. We can't afford to offend that guy from before. A middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator came. We thought he could blow the sky apart. But who would have thought that not only was this guy's cultivation not bad, his magic treasure was also extremely powerful. Moreover, his ability to escape was even comparable to a Jin Dan. No wonder we brothers were defeated. Speaking up to here, Zhong Peifu pondered for a moment, then said in a low voice, Third brother, Xiao Hua just said some ruthless words. Of course we aren't afraid, but our Zhong family's disciples number in the thousands? None of them are Xiao Hua's match. Shouldn't we make some preparations? Zhong Peiyuan frowned for a moment before he smiled. There's no need for that. After all, we didn't hurt his lover. He didn't have any reason to lower himself and hurt a disciple of our Zhong family. I think he's just saying it casually. He's also a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. He wouldn't be so shameless. That's true. Since the Patriarch didn't order us to do anything about it, we don't have to worry about it. Zhong Peifu nodded. We'd better think of another way. Damn it, that's right. How can we not think of a way? Zhong Peiyuan naturally knew what Zhong Peifu was talking about. He said fiercely, My Zhong family has been accumulating things for decades or even hundreds of years, and they were taken away by that bastard in an instant. How can we not be angry? That artifact was passed down from my ancestors and is related to the bloodline of my Zhong family. If it can be repaired successfully, it will be able to awaken the true spirit bloodline of my clansmen. It's extremely important to my Zhong family. We can't not repair it. If that Xiao Hua had come a few years earlier, my Zhong family would have been able to obtain the last Qianmo secret stone. We would have already started to repair the artifact. Zhong Peifu sighed. AI, it's really fate that makes fools of people. It's too late to say anything now. Zhong Peiyuan waved his hand. That Zhong family's patriarch is really rude. He himself doesn't know the use of the gold leaf and instead forced my husband to say it. If he knew the use of the gold leaf, why would he still exchange it? Xue Xue also echoed. Even if they knew the use of the gold leaf, they wouldn't be able to use it. Xiao Hua coldly snorted. However, your husband feels that he won't leak the use of the gold leaf. Then what do we do now? Xue Xue slightly wrinkled her brows. We've already fallen out with the Zhong family. Zhong Tianyao will definitely not exchange the gold leaf with my husband. If he doesn't want to exchange, then so be it. From his tone, I'm afraid that he was forced to do something he didn't want to do. He didn't have the ability to get back at them and instead wanted to vent his anger on this young master. How can this young master let them have their way? Xiao Hua curled his lips and said, Since they did it, then they can't blame this young master for doing it 15 times. Eh? Husband, what do you think? Shui Shui somewhat strangely asked. In her heart, Xiaohua had always advocated being straightforward and upright. She couldn't think of any reason that Xiaohua had to persuade Zhong Tianyao to exchange with him. What do I think? No idea. Xiaohua spread out his hands with a helpless look. Wouldn't it be fine if your husband went over and snatched the gold leaf? Ah. Shui Shui covered her mouth. What Xiaohua said was indeed a common method used by cultivators. However, this most common method coming from Xiaohua's mouth really made Shui Shui feel strange. She couldn't help but ask, Husband, this kind of action doesn't seem to be your usual behavior. What does your husband usually do? Xiaohua said with a smile. Husband has always prioritized others. Husband has never used the strong to bully the weak. Husband has never done things that harm others for his own benefit. Ha! Xiaohua stuck out his chest, raised his head and patted his chest. He laughed and said, I didn't expect your husband to be so perfect in your eyes. Of course. Shui Shui said proudly. Husband is the most perfect male cultivator in Xiaoyu continent. How could other cultivators work for people in the secular world who starve to death? Just based on this, husband can make all the female cultivators have a whole new level of respect for you. Hee, so that's how it is. I was wondering why my wife would say such a thing. Xiaohua suddenly said, Your husband isn't a stickler for rules. For the sake of other people's opinions, I don't care about my own benefits. This is a completely different matter from caring for the common people. What? Shui Shui was somewhat puzzled. Xiaohua pointed his finger and said, That gold leaf obviously has no use in the Zhong family. They just treated it as an ordinary thing and threw it in the ancestral hall. Your husband didn't harm their benefits by taking it, so why can't I? Besides, this gold leaf is extremely important to your husband's cultivation. Even if it harms the Zhong family's benefits, it can still be exchanged for the benefits of more people. Your husband naturally has to take it. Husband's reason seems to be what every cultivator thinks when they do this. Shui Shui said with a smile. However, she didn't go into detail. She knew that Xiaohua had a sense of propriety, so she was somewhat worried. If there were only 2 late-stage foundation establishment cultivators, I wouldn't be worried. However, the Zhong family's patriarch is a golden core cultivator. Husband must be careful. Isn't it just a small Zhong family? Xiaohua swept a glance at the distant Zhongling mountain villa and thought with a sneer. This young master really isn't afraid. Besides, the Zhong family's disciples actually threaten my wife's life in front of me. If I don't teach them a lesson, how can I let them know how powerful your husband is? All right, Shui Shui's eyes looked at Xiaohua. A strange expression flickered in her eyes. She seemed to have sensed that an incomparably sharp awl was gradually appearing. Anyone who ignored this sharp awl would most likely be injured by this awl. Immediately, Xiaohua smiled and said to Shui Shui, Let's go, my wife. We'll go further away from here. This place is really a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. Shui Shui was originally somewhat depressed. She felt that she was holding Xiaohua back. At this moment she smiled and said, Since it's a dragon's pool and a tiger's den, you can even charge out. Your husband is a hero who punched the South Mountain sky-eyed tiger and stepped on the North Sea's tide dragon. How can I be afraid of these small shrimps? Xiaohua pulled Shui Shui and flew far away. He still didn't forget to tease the Zhong family. Shui Shui originally thought that Xiaohua would find a place to stop around the Zhong family. However, she didn't expect that Xiaohua would fly for dozens of li without any intention of stopping. She couldn't help but be surprised and asked, Husband, where are we going? Won't we be far away if we continue flying? Oh, your husband thought about it just now. We just finished threatening them. If we go to look for the gold leaf now, I'm afraid that they'll be on guard. Maybe the gold leaf is still on Zhong Tianyao. Your husband can only get the gold leaf if I kill Zhong Tianyao. Xiaohua smiled and said, Rather than that, it's better to wait for them to forget about this matter. Your husband can secretly come back and take it away. Then, we'll find a place to meditate? My wife, you should meditate first. Familiarize yourself with the cultivation method again so that you can find an opportunity to consume the Ling Lei pill. Your husband will go take a look around and send some good seeds to the secular people near Yin City. Xiaohua said. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 2105. Shui Shui thought for a moment and nodded. Husband, go ahead. I fly slowly and my cultivation base is also shallow. I can only be your stumbling block. Don't worry about it. After you build your foundation, you'll be powerful. Xiaohua comforted her. Just based on the medicinal power of the Ling Lei pill, your husband can guess a thing or two. I hope so. Shui Shui smiled sweetly. I want to lend my husband a hand. Thus, Xiao Hua found a secret place and set up the rabbit formation. He let Shui Shui go into seclusion inside while he flew out and went to the surroundings of Yun City. There, he distributed the good seeds that had been piled up like a mountain to the many secular people. To the north of the country of Shi, there were endless hills. The hills were high and low, undulating continuously. Low thorny vegetation covered the hills, piercing sharply into the air in the cold wind. Somewhere where the sun was shining brightly, a thick fog suddenly rose up. That thick fog quickly dispersed with the cold wind. Wherever the fog passed, the thorns on the hills were dyed with a layer of light brown. That brown color was similar to the color of the thorns. Not to mention the naked eye, even if one's divine sense swept over, it would be impossible to see clearly if one didn't examine it carefully. Immediately after, 1,000 feet away, another thick fog rose up, still floating in the surrounding area of several hundred feet. This process was repeated over and over again. Waves of thick fog rose up and slowly pushed forward. After an unknown period of time, the last wave of fog fell and a hazy figure appeared from the fog. It was the mysterious black-cloaked fellow Taoist from the eastern mountain. Haha, fellow Taoist from East Mountain's gaze swept past the thorns and let out a satisfied laugh. Then he carefully bent down and looked at the thorns and the hills again. With a wave of his hand, he took out a dark green object. That object was more than 3 inches long, sparkling and translucent, faintly emitting a luster. Fellow Taoist from East Mountain touched that object to the thorns, but the brown color on the thorns changed slightly, as if it was transferred to the dark green object. The entire object turned completely brown, its brilliance faded, and the luster also disappeared, turning into a withered branch. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain didn't wait for the object's brilliance to fade. He immediately flicked his hand, and the object fell to the ground with a bang. It was extremely hard. Haha. Fellow Taoist East Mountain was very pleased with the result. He leaped up, and as if he were climbing a flight of stairs, he took a few steps up into the air. Then, his body began to fade away as he flew toward the area surrounded by the black fog. Shockingly, the black fog covered an area of over 50 kilometers. However, even though it was hundreds of miles long, it seemed so insignificant in the face of this boundless hilly land. Fellow Taoist East Mountain? After flying for dozens of miles, Fairy Yingzhuo was frowning slightly as she stood in midair. Below her, there were thousands of Foundation Establishment stage disciples holding all kinds of strange materials in their hands. Their hands were forming strange seals, and from time to time, a faint green light flashed. As the green light bloomed, the materials disappeared on the ground or in midair. Fairy Yingzhuo seemed to have sensed something. She exclaimed softly and looked up. Ha, fellow Taoist Yingzhuo's cultivation has indeed improved. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain's figure appeared in Fairy Yingzhuo's eyes. If it was 10 years ago, fellow Taoist definitely wouldn't be able to sense Ai's aura. That's right. Fairy Yingzhuo nodded slightly. Under fellow Taoist guidance, my cultivation has really made some inconceivable progress. However, this progress seems to be somewhat unequal to my Xuanyan school's contribution. Fairy Yingzhuo's brows relaxed as she looked below her. Alright, I'll let fellow Taoist Yingzhuo know. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain didn't seem to be angry. He smiled and said, I can clearly see fellow Taoist's contribution, and I also understand that I will definitely not go back on my words. I will definitely help fellow Taoist distract your attention. Furthermore, fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain glanced at the thousands of people below his feet, and said, Fellow Taoist Yingzhuo, although you spent a lot of effort to collect these materials for setting up the formation, I completely handed over this 8 desolate spirit capture formation to fellow Taoist. Not only did fellow Taoist obtain this ancient formation for free, these thousands of Foundation Establishment disciples have also learned the Tao of Formation from Ai's secret manual. For the development of Xuanyan School. Fellow Taoist Yingzhuo, don't say that you have no use at all. Heck, Fairy Yingzhuo smiled and nodded. It's precisely because of this that I will use the strength of the entire school to help fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain. It's just that. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain, I have some doubts. Fellow Taoist has to deal with, who is it? With fellow Taoist's magic power, don't tell me, you still have to go through so much trouble? Fairy Yingzhuo hesitated for a moment, and asked via voice transmission. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain's face turned cold. Although his entire body was hidden in a cloak, Fairy Yingzhuo could clearly feel the surrounding temperature drop. She heard a faint voice. Fellow Taoist Ingjua, according to our agreement, you can't know about this matter. Furthermore, with your current cultivation, knowing about this matter will only bring you disadvantages and not benefits. Why do you have to be so nosy? Fairy Ingjua was a bit embarrassed and the corner of her mouth curled up. I will use the strength of the entire school, so naturally I have to consider the situation of Xuanyan School. If there is something that harms the foundation of our humble school, I will have to consider it. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain seemed to be thinking, and after a moment he said, what I do no one in the Xiaoyu continent will know. Don't worry, when you enter the deity transformation stage, perhaps you will have the qualifications to know some things. I also want to see the situation and tell you some things. Your school's disciples really have a foundation. This formation seems to be about to be completed. Is that so? When Fairy Ingjua heard this, her face lit up with joy. She used her divine sense and said, this 8 Desolation Spirit Detention Formation has been set up for several years, and it is finally about to be completed. I also want to see the might of this ancient formation. Ah, fellow Taoist Ingjua, I'm afraid you can't see it yet. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain laughed heartily, seeming to be in an extremely good mood. After this 8 Desolation Spirit Detention Formation is set up, it still needs to slowly absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, gradually smoothing out the formation's imperfections, and fusing the formation's traces with the heavens and earth. Only then can it be used. Otherwise, if even fellow Taoists can see the formation's traces, how can I's enemies fall into the trap? There's this kind of trouble? Fairy Ingjua was a bit flabbergasted. I thought that it was rare to see a formation that could be set up for 100 miles. Who would have thought that this formation actually needs to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth? Of course. I see that the existing formations on your Xiaoyu continent are all formation tools like formation plates and formation flags. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth used by those formations is stored in the formation tools beforehand. The fluctuations of these spiritual chi of heaven and earth are different from the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It is extremely easy for others to see. I's formation emphasizes on fusion, using the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth as its foundation. Fellow Taoist can still see the formation's traces now, but after several months to half a year, you definitely won't be able to sense it with your divine sense. Fellow Taoist Eastern Mountain said proudly, otherwise how could I let fellow Taoist collect so many rare materials? Chapter 2106. Sigh, I can be considered ignorant in front of fellow Taoist East Mountain. Fairy Ingjua sighed. Hee. Fellow Taoist East Mountain flew to the center of the 8 Desolate Spirit Capture Formation and scanned the entire formation with his divine sense. He was very satisfied and transmitted his voice, in half a day this formation will take shape. At that time, fellow Taoist Ingjua will lead your sect's disciples according to the previous plan and withdraw from all directions. I will then use the final spell to activate the formation. Oh, is it the spell that consumes a lot of magic power and divine sense at the end of fellow Taoist East Mountain's formation? Fairy Ingjua asked thoughtfully. That's right. After using these spells, I will consume a lot of my own power. I have no choice but to find a place to meditate first. Fellow Taoist East Mountain nodded and said, Fellow Taoist Ingjua, during this period, you still have to diligently inquire about that person's whereabouts. Yes, I understand. When Fairy Ingjua said this, she looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. What? Fellow Taoist Ingjua doesn't believe in I? Fellow Taoist East Mountain was very sensitive and noticed this and asked curiously. That's not it. Fairy Ingjua thought for a while and transmitted her voice. I only received a tip from a disciple. Ever since we got a clue about that person, my Xuanyan sect has done its best to pay attention to that person's whereabouts. In order to not be discovered by that person, we used countless methods. It's really exhausting. Furthermore, I can't guarantee that I won't be discovered. This isn't what fellow Taoist should consider. Fellow Taoist East Mountain waved his hand and said, that person's magic power is profound. Even if he was discovered, it wouldn't be surprising. What I want to say is that that person's whereabouts are uncertain, as if he's looking for something. Fairy Ingjua clenched her teeth and said, Hee, fellow Taoist Ingjua also noticed? Fellow Taoist East Mountain laughed and said, I can't answer this question because I also don't know what that person is looking for. And it's precisely because I sensed that this person was looking for something that I had no choice but to make a move. If that person finds that thing I'm afraid it would be an abnormal disaster. I had no choice but to make a move in advance. Oh, I see. Fairy Yingzhua nodded slightly, as if this was the first time she had heard such news from fellow Taoist East Mountain. About half a day later, the sun had already set in the western mountains. The gorgeous blood-red color burned through the western sky, casting a dusky light over the hills. Fairy Yingzhua and the other Xuanyan disciples gradually flew away, like flies leaving their nest. They scattered in twos and threes in all directions. When everyone was far away and their divine senses could not reach, they saw fellow Taoist of Eastern Mountain's body tremble and quickly rush into the sky. When he reached a height of several hundred feet, his body suddenly stopped. His divine sense was like a torrential flood, covering an area of 100 miles, scanning inch by inch. Only after 2 hours did his divine sense stop. Fellow Taoist East Mountain then clapped his hands, and a green formation diagram several feet in size appeared in his hands. Fellow Taoist East Mountain shook his hand, and the formation diagram unfurled in the air. At this time, it could be seen clearly that the formation diagram was actually made up of pieces of green seal text. These green seal texts seemed to be separated from each other, but also seemed to have a mysterious connection, forming the entire formation diagram. Pooh, fellow Taoist East Mountain opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of green blood on the formation diagram. The green brilliance on the formation diagram became brighter, and in the evening sky, it appeared extremely strange. The formation diagram appeared with the brilliance, and it became increasingly larger, gradually turning from several feet to several feet, and then gradually expanding again. At this time, fellow Taoist East Mountain's body began to tremble again, and a series of cryptic syllables came out from his cloak. As the syllables rushed into the formation diagram, the green seal text scattered in all directions like tadpoles leaving their nest, and the formation diagram was enlarged again. What was inconceivable was that as the green seal text swam in the air, many strange phenomena flashed in the air. Clusters of green light accompanied by wisps of black fog appeared in the void, entangling the green seal text. Sounds like the wailing of ghosts came from the void. A pitch-black color, darker than the night sky, first appeared, then condensed, forming thin threads, 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 and even thin threads. Rumble, the faint sound of thunder came from the sky above the formation diagram, which was already close to 100 miles in size. It seemed that many strange phenomena had attracted the might of the heavens, but the thunder and lightning were extremely weak, and only lit up this part of the sky a little. Seeing the green light mixed with the black mist and the green seal text, fellow Taoist East Mountain raised his head and let out a long howl. His body trembled violently again, and two identical fellow Taoists of East Mountain separated. This was clearly a spirit-severing cultivator's ability. However, to everyone's surprise, the two fellow Taoists of East Mountain swayed again, and actually split into four. The four cloaked fellow Taoists of East Mountain flew to the four corners of the formation diagram, and at the same time, used the green seal text. At this time, along with four rhythmic syllables, four flame-like green lights flew out from the four corners of the formation diagram, and clustered around the feet of the four fellow Taoists of East Mountain. The four fellow Taoists of East Mountain waved their hands, and there were also faint green seal text syllables. Along with the fellow Taoists of East Mountain's arms, the four green lights rushed to the center of the formation diagram. Pung! With an earth-shattering sound, the four green lights collided and instantly turned into countless dots of fluorescent light. The fluorescent light fell like raindrops and sprinkled over the entire array diagram. The green seal text and the dots of ink that had appeared before merged into the fluorescent light and fell with it. Thus, the entire formation diagram slowly fell, and gradually merged with the formation that had been set up before. Go! The four fellow Taoists of East Mountain shouted at the same time, and their 8 hands rubbed together. Large amounts of spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered together, and as the seals were cast, they scattered over the formation diagram. Rumble! The earth shook and the entire ground shook. Endless dust rose into the sky, covering half of the sky within 100 miles. As the dust gradually settled, the jade-green brilliance and the pitch-black ink spots gradually disappeared. The entire array diagram had completely disappeared. Phew! The four fellow Taoists of East Mountain let out a sigh of relief at the same time, and then they raised their heads to the sky and laughed. Ah! Then the four figures rushed to the center of the formation, and gradually merged into one person. The fellow Taoist of East Mountain, who had just turned into one person, swayed slightly, as if he had used up too much of his magic power. Fellow Taoist of East Mountain snorted coldly, and his figure flickered like a ripple and disappeared in midair. The entire night sky returned to its deathly stillness. Apart from the wind, there was only darkness. The moon had just risen and the moonlight scattered down, dispelling the darkness. However, the hills within 100 miles were no different from the other hills. Even if one scanned it with their divine sense or looked with their naked eyes, they would absolutely not be able to find any clues. The hills in the north of the country of Shi regained its peace, which had not been there for several years. However, in the Ming Kingdom's Yin City, the Zhong family's Zhongling Mountain Villa could not calm down. A shocked cry rang out from a slope in the north of the villa. There were several rows of huts on this slope, and in front of the huts were patches of medicinal fields. In the darkness of the night, the spirit herbs shook their spirits, absorbing the moonlight and spiritual energy. What's going on? Who's making so much noise? Several patrolling disciples flying in midair heard the noise and flew over. Senior brother, senior brother? An anxious voice rang out, and a young disciple broke through the door of one of the huts. He almost rolled on the ground as he cried out, "Dead, dead, what are you shouting for?" One of the patrolling disciples scolded, "What dead? They're all dead, all dead." The young disciple pointed his finger incoherently, and said with extreme fear. When the other disciples heard this, they frowned. The disciple at the front patted his hand warily, and took out a yellow talisman. He said in a low voice, "Calm down. We've already passed by. You should explain the situation clearly." At this moment, the lights in the surrounding huts lit up. Several disciples had already poked their heads out of the huts, wanting to see what was going on. "All of you stay in the huts. Don't make a sound." The patrolling disciples shouted loudly, preventing everyone from coming out. Huff, huff, huff. The disciple who had screamed took a few deep breaths, and the horror on his face had not disappeared. He whispered incoherently, "The people in my hut are all dead." "What? All dead? There were 5 people in your hut." The patrolling disciple was shocked and turned to look at the hut. "Yes, 4 living senior brothers are all dead." The disciple came back to his senses and said in horror, "I was talking to them just now. Because I didn't eat well last night, I had a stomachache. When I returned to the hut, the 4 brothers in the hut were all dead. And they died in an extremely horrible way." Hiss, the patrolling disciple took a deep breath and looked at the hut in front of him. His mood was very complicated. Obviously, this disciple had said something that he had never encountered in the past 10 years of patrolling. Immediately, the patrolling disciple did not dare to be negligent. He ordered another disciple to go back and inform the others. He then activated the yellow talisman in his hand and walked steadily towards the hut where the light was coming from. With a sound of the door, the patrolling disciple pushed open the door that he had closed and looked around. He saw that it was a hut about 5 feet wide. 5 heatable beds were placed in the 4 corners of the hut, and a bean oil lamp swayed on the table in front of the window. The flickering shadow moved in the hut, and in the light and shadow, the corpses of 4 young disciples with ashen faces were reflected in the eyes of the patrolling disciple. Although the patrolling disciple had made some preparations, he still could not help but exclaim softly when he saw the horrified and distorted faces of the 4 disciples. The hands of the 4 disciples were stretched out, as if they were trying to grab something. Their fingers were slightly curled and their nails were black and tight. The eyes of the 4 disciples were staring straight at the door. Their eyes were wide open and filled with disbelief, as if they had seen something terrifying. Their lips were already dripping with blood, obviously bitten by the disciples' teeth. Chapter 2107. The 4 disciples who had died tragically were looking at the door. The disciples on duty who had just stepped into the room saw the 8 dead fishes' eyes and their hair stood on end. Fear rose from the bottom of their hearts. The disciple on duty was afraid, but he didn't dare to be negligent. He first scanned the entire room and when he didn't find anything unusual, he walked to the disciple closest to the door. After a brief inspection, he frowned slightly, because he didn't see any injuries on the disciple's body. "How is it?" At this moment, a deep voice sounded, "Did you find any clues?" "Captain Zhongyu." The disciple on duty showed a relaxed expression and hurriedly turned around and bowed. A middle-aged cultivator in his 40s with thick eyebrows and big eyes steadily stepped into the room. This cultivator's cultivation was around the 11th layer of the Qi refining realm. Zhongyu raised his hand and motioned for the disciples on duty to stand up. He asked, "Did you find anything unusual?" No. The disciple on duty shook his head slightly. This subordinate did a rough check and found that they might have been poisoned to death. "But I didn't find any injuries." This subordinate can't say for sure. "Did anything happen tonight?" "No, it was the same as before. There was no movement at all." Hearing this, Zhongyu's frown deepened. He had been the captain of the Zhongling mountain villa for decades, but this was the first time he had encountered such a strange thing. It was also the first time he had encountered so many low-level disciples dying at once. "Let the coroner come and take a closer look." Zhongyu turned around and ordered. One of the disciples on duty quickly walked away. Zhongyu looked around the room again and asked, "Tell me the details of the situation." "Yes, Captain." The disciple on duty pointed outside and said in a low voice, "There is still a surviving disciple outside. This subordinate will let him speak." Let him in." Zhongyu nodded, but the disciple on duty had just taken 2 steps when Zhongyu shouted again, "No need, this old man will go and ask him myself." "Yes." By the time Zhongyu arrived in front of the surviving disciple, he had already recovered some of his spirit, but his eyes were still a little dazed. Zhongyu looked at this disciple and muttered in his heart. He knew that although there were some disciples of the Zhong clan amongst these disciples, most of them were disciples of other surnames that were related to the Zhong clan. There were even some villagers with some natural endowments near Zhongling Mountain Villa. Their aptitudes weren't too good, but they could still cultivate. Most of them were around the 3rd layer of qi refining. Because they couldn't advance any further, they were assigned to the medicinal garden. Although these disciples would receive guidance from the Zhong family's disciples on their cultivation, their true purpose was to plant spirit herbs and do some chores in the Zhongling Mountain Villa. Although their status was higher than that of ordinary servants, they would never be noticed by others. Therefore, they would not be involved in anything that targeted the Zhong family. "Tell this old man the ins and outs of the matter in detail." Zhongyu looked at the disciple with clear eyes. "Yes." The disciple licked his dry lips and repeated the story. This time it was clearly more detailed than before and his tone was much calmer. However, the matter was simple to begin with. No matter how detailed it was impossible to loosen Zhongyu's brows. "You're saying that you only went out for a short moment and when you returned, the 4 of them were all dead? You didn't see anything out of the ordinary?" Zhongyu asked. "Yes, this disciple really didn't." The disciple was about to blurt out when he suddenly thought of something. He hesitated and said, "No, this disciple seems to have seen a black shadow. It was faster than a bird, but I couldn't see it clearly at night. This disciple doesn't know if this disciple saw wrongly." "A black shadow? How big was it? Where did it fly to?" Zhongyu's face lit up with joy. The disciple stretched out his hand and gestured to the size of his palm. However, he seemed to feel that something was wrong, so he enlarged his hand again. Then he felt that something was wrong again, so he enlarged his hand again. When he reached the size of a foot, he hesitated and said, "This big." This disciple was really sleepy and didn't see it clearly. Where did the black shadow fly to?" "It seemed to be, over there." The disciple was still hesitant and pointed uncertainly at another row of small houses. "This is bad." When Zhongyu saw the disciple pointing at another house, his heart immediately sank. He said anxiously, "Zhonghuan, quickly go and gather all the disciples in the herb garden." "Captain, it's already late at night." The disciple on duty whispered, "Don't gather all the disciples." However, at this point, the disciple named Zhonghuan seemed to have realized something and exclaimed, "Captain, could it be? Only now did you remember? How dare you rely on this old man's usual guidance?" Zhongyu snorted coldly. "Yes." Zhonghuan hurriedly waved his hand and asked the disciples on duty to wake up all the disciples who were resting in the herb garden and gather them. After a while, Zhonghuan walked over with a slightly dark face. "How is it?" Zhongyu asked indifferently when he saw Zhonghuan's expression. "Captain, you know that the disciples in 3 houses are all dead," Zhonghuan said in a low voice. "They died in the same way as these 4. This subordinate also took a rough look and didn't find anything unusual. 15 disciples? Zhongyu's expression changed drastically. "Yes, 15 disciples. Including these 4, there are 19 disciples." Zhonghuan nodded slightly. At this moment, a loud sound rang out in the air above the Zhongling Mountain Villa in the distance. It was as if millions of firecrackers had been lit up one after another. Following the sound, clusters of brilliance flashed in the night sky. Who touched the mountain villa's restriction? Zhongyu was shocked. He didn't have time to ask his subordinate about the situation and activated the flying talisman to rush into the air. However, just as he flew up, he heard an extremely angry voice like rolling thunder. Where did this evil creature come from? How dare you break into my Zhong family's ancestral hall? Then, another burst of dazzling fire appeared, and a thunderous sound was heard. Ah! Third granduncle's magic weapon? Zhongyu was shocked and his body paused in midair. He knew that Zhong Peiyuan's cultivation was in the late stage of foundation establishment. With him attacking, how could he stand by the side? Even if he went, he would only die. Ha, old Zhong, of course it's me. Xiaohua's slightly exaggerated voice sounded at the same time. Then Zhongyu saw a golden light flash in front of his eyes. The golden light was so bright and sharp that it almost blinded his eyes. He couldn't help but close his eyes. Slash, a sound was heard. It was unpleasant to the ear, as if silk was being cut. Then he heard Zhong Peiyuan's angry roar. Xiaohua, you are really bold. Chapter 2108. This young master said that if you make this young master angry, this young master will kill everyone in your Zhong family one by one. If you want this young master to calm down. Xiaohua's voice suddenly came closer. Zhongyu was shocked and hurriedly landed. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged, and then condensed together with that cold snort. Hee. A sneer flew over Zhongyu's head. It was so fast that Zhongyu had just opened his eyes and couldn't see it clearly. Oh, this. Zhongyu was somewhat enlightened. Isn't this the black shadow that disciple mentioned just now? Moreover, didn't this black shadow say that he would kill everyone in the Zhong family one by one? Could it be, this is the Xiaohua that spread throughout the Zhong family a few days ago? Zhongyu didn't have time to turn around and ask the surviving disciple when he saw two figures chasing after Xiaohua. Even in Zhongyu's eyes, the speed of these two people was much slower than Xiaohua's. Patriarch? Third granduncle. Zhongyu moaned sorrowfully. How could he investigate a person who could make a late-stage foundation establishment and an early-stage golden core cultivator join hands to chase after him? Finished thinking, Zhongyu swallowed his saliva and turned to ask the surviving disciple, "Did you see that black shadow just now? Was it the one you saw just now?" "I saw it." The fear on the disciple's face hadn't disappeared, and his fingers were trembling. "Yes, it looked like it, but what?" Zhongyu asked anxiously. "But it didn't look as fast as just now," the surviving disciple said with some hesitation. "Of course just now he was killing someone and now he's running for his life. Of course it's a lot faster." Zhongyu said without hesitation. "Look at that figure, is it the same?" It's this size. The surviving disciple raised his hands, and the gap between his hands was a bit wider. After about half a cup of tea's time, two figures flew over from a distance. Zhong Qinyao's voice also came over in a low voice. "Old third, how's your magic weapon? This old man seems to have seen it being injured by that guy's magic weapon." "En?" Zhong Peiyuan's voice was somewhat distressed. "Good, Patriarch knows that Guy Xiaohua's magic weapon is extremely powerful. Boy's magic weapon wasn't his match and it was broken just now. If the boy wants to repair it, I'm afraid it will take a long time." "Damn it. Xiaohua, this bastard." Zhong Qinyao's voice was also angry. "This bastard's cultivation is indeed not bad. Jing Er's message is also not a false report. Relying on this magic treasure, he can resist a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator with a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivation. Moreover, his thunder-controlling sex disciples are proficient in flying techniques, and this brat's technique, even this old man can't catch up. If he goes against my Zhong family, it will be really troublesome." The most hateful thing is that Xiaohua was actually able to touch the ancestral hall and break through several defensive array formations. If not for the last array formation, wouldn't he have entered the ancestral hall? Zhong Peiyuan also felt some lingering fear at this time. "And since I've already fallen out with Xiaohua, I have to be tough to the end." Zhong Tianyao sneered. "Even if we have to reconcile in the end, we have to let him know that this is Meng country, and he's just a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. My Zhong family isn't a place where he can behave atrociously." You still want to kill my Zhong family's disciples one by one? Give him more guts. Give him 10 times his cultivation." Zhong Peiyuan said angrily. "Who is this?" As Zhong Tianyao spoke, he saw a figure in front of him flying over in a somewhat cowering manner. Zhong Peiyuan rolled his eyes a few times and ordered, "Call Zhong Yejing over. This old man has something to ask her." A disciple on duty complied and activated a flying talisman and left. Zhong Peiyuan transmitted a few words to Zhong Peifu. Zhong Peifu's face showed anger and his figure descended. He and Zhong Peiyuan looked around and asked the coroner, the surviving disciple, and the disciple on duty a few questions. Other than knowing that the 19 disciples died from poison, they didn't find any other clues. Third great uncle. Zhong Yejing quickly flew over. Obviously, she had already asked the disciple on duty on the way. When she saw the tragic deaths of the disciples, she couldn't help but feel a little sad. "Look at what you've done," Zhong Peiyuan said without any trace of politeness. "If you didn't bring Xiaohua here, how could my Zhong family lose so many people? These low-level disciples are also my Zhong family's disciples." Third great uncle knows. Zhong Yejing frowned and said, "Junior feels that this is definitely not Xiaohua's doing. If it wasn't him, then who could it be? He just admitted it." Zhong Peifu sneered. Third great uncle knows. Zhong Yejing shook her head. "Xiaohua did it for the 2 gold sheets. He probably went to the ancestral hall because he heard the news that Junior occasionally revealed. As for the words he said, they should be words of anger. Because in the 10 days that Junior traveled with him, his compassion for the state of the universe and the fate of mankind, as well as the realm where he places the lives of ordinary people in his eyes, is far from what we cultivators can compare to. How could such a benevolent cultivator casually kill people? The realm where he placed the lives of ordinary people in his eyes?" Zhong Peiyuan asked curiously, "What do you mean?" Zhong Yejing didn't hesitate to tell him what Xiaohua did and finally said, "Third great uncle, what kind of cultivator would do such a thing? Junior knows that I can't do it. Tiske, a person fishing for fame." Without waiting for Zhong Peiyuan to answer, Zhong Peifu mocked, "A group of ordinary people, ant-like existences, how could a cultivator care about them? That Xiaohua only told you about it and went by himself. You didn't follow him, so what did you do?" "Second great uncle, Junior's divine sense has seen it before," Zhong Yejing retorted. "I reckon it was for you to see," Zhong Peifu said without any trace of politeness. "Before he came here, he was already plotting against my Zhong family. He wanted to use such an illusion to confuse you so that he could obtain my Zhong family's gold leaf." Second great uncle. Zhong Yejing said anxiously, "If you don't believe me, you can send someone to investigate. Xiaohua hasn't shown up for more than 10 days, so he must be helping those ordinary people around my Zhongling mountain villa." "Humph, why should I care about this when I have nothing better to do?" Zhong Peifu said again, "Patriarch has already ordered me to capture the other disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. I don't have time. Besides, you're a disciple of the Zhong family. How can you help an outsider?" Second great uncle. Zhong Yejing said anxiously, "Boy is afraid that second great uncle will only pay attention to Xiaohua and let the real culprit go, harming the lives of my Zhong family's disciples. You can go now." Without waiting for Zhong Yejing to say anything, Zhong Peiyuan waved his hand and said, "Gather all the disciples in the Zhongling mountain villa who are at the foundation establishment stage and above. Those who are in closed-door cultivation should also come out. Before Xiaohua is captured, be on high alert. Don't let anything go wrong." "Yes, boy understands." Zhong Yejing nodded sadly and flew away. Zhong Peifu and Zhong Peiyuan checked for a while, but they couldn't find anything. They gave a few instructions to the disciples on duty and went back. Although the disciples in the herb garden had dispersed, everyone was anxious. A terrifying atmosphere spread throughout the herb garden, so much so that the entire Zhongling mountain villa began to tense up. Fortunately, after more than 10 days, there were no more movements from Xiaohua, and there were no abnormalities. Even the disciples of the Zhong family who went out to look for Xiaohua and Shui came up empty-handed. It seemed that Xiaohua and Shui had already left Yin City and went somewhere else. Therefore, the tense hearts of the people in the Zhongling mountain villa began to gradually relax. Then it was another moonless night. The Zhongling mountain villa was shrouded in darkness. Occasionally, a few lights came from a few small houses, making the villa look even more desolate. "Help!" Suddenly, a mournful cry for help sounded from the south of the villa. And this cry for help came to an abrupt end, and there was no more sound. "Let's go." Zhong Yu, who was on duty and had his attention on the herb garden, heard the voice and immediately said in shock, "This is the place where the family members live. How could this guy rush into the inner residence?" Yes, Xiaohua was a foundation establishment cultivator. How could he go to the inner residence of the Zhong family to harass the family members? However, a strange thing happened again. Zhong Yu had just flown for a few breaths with the disciples on duty when there was a rumbling sound of magic tools colliding with each other in the southwest of the Zhongling mountain villa. At the same time, Zhong Yu's familiar voice echoed arrogantly in the air above the Zhongling mountain villa. Aha, old Zhong, so your Zhongling mountain villa has a place to refine magic tools. You hid it so well, no wonder you were so confident in repairing your ancestral magic tools. If this young master hadn't stumbled upon it by accident, I wouldn't have been able to discover your Zhong family's secret. Chapter 2109. Xiaohua, you little bastard, you've gone too far. Zhong Peyun's voice naturally came over in a flustered and exasperated manner. Today this young master has already enjoyed himself to the fullest. This is just a small punishment for your Zhong family. As Xiaohua spoke, he whistled and flew away from the side of Zhongling mountain villa. How did the patriarch provoke this god of plague? Zhong Yu's heart was itching with hatred for Xiaohua. For the past month, he had been patrolling every night for fear that something might go wrong. However, in the end, a disaster still happened today. As for Xiaohua, he had gone to the west side of Yin City in the past 10 days and had seen everything within a radius of several hundred miles. He had also sent out a lot of fine seeds from his space and was very satisfied. Today he just happened to pass by Zhongling Mountain Villa and used the Earth Escape technique to come to the Ancestral Hall to take a look. As a result, the Ancestral Hall's defense was very tight and even had Zhong Tianyao personally overseeing it. Xiaohua knew that the Zhong family's Ancestral Hall was definitely hiding something other than the gold leaf. Thus, Xiaohua looked elsewhere with interest, wanting to do something that would make Zhong Tianyao feel disgusted. However, the entire Zhongling Mountain Villa's defense was very tight and there seemed to be disciples patrolling everywhere. Xiaohua was also unwilling to make things difficult for these low-level disciples and thus headed towards the southwest direction. This southwest direction seemed to have few traces of people and the defense was also very loose. However, when Xiaohua looked carefully, he actually found that there was an extremely powerful restriction underground. When Xiaohua broke through the restriction and entered, he actually found that it was an extremely complete place for refining tools and Zhong Peiyuan was actually inside. Damn it, I just casually copied some of their refining materials? This can't be considered a lesson. Xiaohua was somewhat dissatisfied. This Zhong Peiyuan has learned to be careful now. If he doesn't release his magic treasure, this young master's soaring dragon shears can't ruthlessly cut them a few times. And it seems that Zhongling Mountain Villa is also somewhat troublesome. There are actually people screaming. This time, this old fool Zhong will be somewhat troublesome. However, speaking of which, with this soaring dragon shears, it seems to be more powerful than the flying swords in the past. No wonder my Dao sect's cultivators, although they envy sword cultivators, if you really want them to nurture a sword, they won't really do it. Once this magic treasure reaches a certain level, it's indeed powerful. Xiaohua flew as he pondered. However, Reverend Brightsword's Dao Heart Sword Seed technique seems to be feasible. Although Dream has yet to awaken, this young master has already sensed the vigorous vitality within it. And a special feeling within the flying sword. I really don't know if the Dream Executor or the Soaring Dragon Scissors will be more powerful. Oh, what is that? Xiaohua suddenly furrowed his brows. His divine sense swept towards the area behind him. However, when his divine sense swept out, he only saw a palm-sized black shadow flash before it suddenly disappeared. When he looked carefully, there was no trace of it at all. Strange. Xiaohua was a little surprised. He stopped and flew back. After checking again, he still didn't find anything strange. He smacked his lips and flew up again. When he flew far away on top of a rock under Xiaohua, something that looked exactly like a rock moved. However, as soon as this rock left the rock, it immediately turned pitch black and flew in another direction like an arrow from a bow. Husband, why are you smiling so lewdly? Xue Xue opened her eyes and looked at Xiaohua's lecherous smile. She unconsciously covered her mouth and laughed. Did you peek at some girl coming out of the bath? Or did you see some fairy spring scenery? Xiaohua raised his head and flung his seemingly elegant hair to the side. Is your husband that tasteless? Oh, that's... Xue Xue's eyes lit up. Could it be that husband got the gold leaf from the Zhong family? Speaking of the gold leaf, Xiaohua was like a deflated balloon. He sighed and said, "Ai, how could that be? That old fool Zhong is very cautious. I reckon he already has the gold leaf with him. If husband wants it, I can't exchange it. Then I can only capture Zhong Tianyao. Capture a golden core cultivator? Shue Shue shook her head and said very sympathetically, I'm afraid husband still has to cultivate for another 100 years. And Xiaohua knew that he had the chance to kill Zhong Tianyao, but to capture him, it wouldn't be easy. But if he killed a golden core cultivator for 2 gold leaf, Xiaohua asked himself if he could do it for the time being. Then what are you so happy about? Shue Shue asked. Ha, Xiaohua heard and couldn't help but laugh. He told her about the 2 times he harassed Zhongling Mountain Villa and explained, since husband can't get the gold leaf, then I'll keep harassing them and make them annoyed. In the worst case they'll have no choice but to come find husband. Anyway, the gold leaf is useless to them. They should be happy to get rid of husband's harassment. That's a good idea. Shue Shue pursed her lips and laughed. She seemed to have the same childlike innocence as Xiaohua. After laughing, Shue Shue said, actually the Zhong clan is also overcompensating. From what they said, it seems that there's been some unforeseen event, so they don't want to exchange with husband. Wife is indeed smart. Xiaohua praised. Before husband went to harass them for the first time, I've already investigated clearly. Chapter 21:10. Not to mention the warmth of Xiaohua and Shue Shue within the Zhongling Mountain Villa, the south side of the womenfolk was already in chaos. Zhong Peiyuan was standing in front of an embroidery building, his face was flickering with uncertainty. Around him there were many crying sounds. In front of him stood Zhong Yu and Zhong Yejing who had just walked over. Zhong Peiyuan opened his mouth, his tone seemed to be a little hesitant. He was actually afraid to hear Zhong Yejing's answer. Third granduncle. Zhong Yejing's face was also extremely ugly. She whispered, Jing has already checked one by one, there are 34 womenfolk dead. What? This many? Zhong Yu's face turned green. Yes. Zhong Yejing said with a bitter face, among them were dying children and female cultivators at the 12th level of qi refinement. The way they died is the same as the tragic death of the nursery disciples a month ago. That damn Xiaohua. Zhong Peiyuan gritted his teeth and said, he's obviously a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Where did he get such a ruthless and insidious method? He didn't even let go of a dying child. How can such behavior be worthy of the name of a famous sect? Third granduncle. In this boy's opinion, we need Ming country's Taiqing sect, Changbai sect, and other cultivation sects to be witnesses and let them make the decision for our Zhong family. Zhong Yu thought for a moment and whispered, after all, our Zhong family can't compare with the Imperial Thunder sect. It would be fine if she didn't mention Changbai sect, but when she heard Changbai sect, Zhong Peiyuan became angry and said fiercely, your fist is still harder than your own. If you want others to support you, you have to take out spirit stones. Seeing Zhong Peiyuan angry, Zhong Yu immediately realized something and hurriedly lowered her head. What else do you have to say? Zhong Peiyuan had nowhere to vent his anger, so he scolded Zhong Yejing. The first time can be said to be a coincidence, but what about the second time? Are you going to say that Xiaohua is innocent? These 34 womenfolk's lives, was it someone else who took it? If it's not Xiaohua, then tell me who is it? Zhong Yejing was speechless. She wanted to argue, but she really didn't know what to say. After all, one may know a person's face but not his heart. She and Xiaohua had only met once. Seeing that Zhong Yejing was silent, Zhong Peiyuan continued, you have committed a grave sin by bringing this devil to my Zhong family. In my opinion, you'll surely be heavily punished. But it's precisely because we need people now, so I'll give you a way out and allow you to redeem yourself through meritorious service. Once Xiaohua is killed, you can enter into closed-door cultivation in the Orchid of the Bells courtyard to reflect on your mistakes. Yes, boy understands. Zhong Yejing bowed. At that moment, a young disciple of the 4th level of qi refining hurriedly flew over. Seeing Zhong Peiyuan throwing a tantrum, he hastily landed on the ground and cowered, not daring to approach. What's the matter? Zhong Peiyuan looked at the disciple and scolded. Bad news, bad news? That disciple shouted in an exaggerated manner. What's the big deal? Zhong Peiyuan reprimanded. Haven't you seen the world yet? Yes. The disciple didn't know how to respond to Zhong Peiyuan's reprimand. What's the matter? Zhong Yu knew that this was his disciple on duty, so he scolded in a low voice, if you have something to say, say it quickly. I'll let the old ancestor know. The disciple hurriedly said, several medicinal fields in the herb garden have been dug up, not even the roots are left. That's it? Zhong Peiyuan said angrily, do you still need to report this? He knew that the spirit herbs in the herb garden were common, not rare, and the spirit herbs in several medicinal fields were not worth many spirit stones. Yes, this disciple understands. The disciple nodded and hurriedly turned around. After the disciple left, Zhong Yejing was about to speak, but Zhong Peiyuan frowned and his expression tensed up. He stood there respectfully and after a while he bowed again and transmitted a few words. It seemed that Zhong Tianyao had something to tell him. After Zhong Peiyuan finished transmitting his voice, he turned to Zhong Yejing and said, Jing, go and call Zhong Dong over. The two of you go to the Zhongling Hall and wait for the patriarch's orders. Yes, Jing understands. Zhong Yejing hurriedly bowed and accepted the order. However, she was still a little surprised. Although Zhong Yedong's name was similar to hers, and he was also a direct descendant of the Zhong clan, he was her cousin. He was only born a little earlier than her, but their parents gave him a similar name. However, as his name suggested, Zhong Yedong's temper was quite irritable, which was the complete opposite of Zhong Yejing's gentle and quiet personality. After Zhong Yejing left, Zhong Peiyuan did not even look at her. He ordered Zhong Yu to send more people to pay attention to the movements in the village, and flew away himself. Seeing Zhong Peiyuan fly away, the tension in Zhong Yu's heart loosened a little. In fact, there were still some things that he didn't dare to say to Zhong Peiyuan face to face. Over the past month, because of the inexplicable deaths of the disciples in the medicinal garden, the hearts of the people in the manor had already wavered. Many of the tenant farmers who worked in the manor had quietly left, and even more people found excuses to not come over. Many of the chores in the manor were temporarily done by the disciples with cultivation. However, these things were managed by the housekeeper. Even if the housekeeper did not say anything, Zhong Yu had to consider whether it was appropriate for him to say it. The south side of the Zhongling mountain village was brightly lit, and cries of sorrow could be heard everywhere. After all, 34 lives were lost and many relatives were involved. This night was destined to not be peaceful. However, unlike the chaos in the Zhongling mountain village about 10 miles away from the Zhongling mountain village, a large number of willow trees surrounded a small lake. The lake water rippled in the night wind, and the willow branches danced on the shore like ghosts baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. On the shore there was a small courtyard. At this moment, it was boundlessly quiet, and there was not the slightest movement. Woo, the night wind grew stronger and it actually blew a sound. Pai li pa la, it was unknown which room's window was blown open, but then there was the sound of a window being closed. It seemed that the owner of the room was sitting by the window. Zhong Haoren, a clear, somewhat helpless and somewhat agitated voice sounded, I don't want you to pity me here, I'd rather live like this. Hurry up and leave, don't bother me here. It's been more than a month and you've been nagging in my ears during the day and guarding my window at night. You're more annoying than a woman with a loose tongue. This voice was actually Zhong Xiuhan's. Senior sister, you should listen to me. Zhong Haoren's lukewarm voice sounded at the same time, as long as you nod your head, I'll go and beg Marshal Aunt Yi Jing, beg her to come here and let her bring you to find Xiao Hua. You also know how good the quality of the medicinal pill he gave you last time was. He's a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, and now he's at Foundation Establishment. Even Marshal Aunt Yi Jing is extremely respectful to him, so it can be seen how deep his cultivation is. I'm sure he has even better medicinal pills on him, and will definitely be able to heal your injuries. Zhong Haoren, you dare to mention my injuries to Xiao Hua. Zhong Xiuhan was flustered and exasperated. Back then he was at Qi Refinement and I was also at Qi Refinement. Now that he's at Foundation Establishment, what about me? How can I even talk about cultivation now? You're showing off my pity in front of him for no reason? Is it because I'm not pitiful enough? Do you want me to lose face in front of Xiao Hua? In front of the Imperial Thunder sect? In the country of Xi? It's not that serious. Zhong Haoren still said gently, I think Xiao Hua is pretty good. Last time he gave us the medicinal pill without a second word. This time if he can help he will definitely help. Zhong Haoren. You stupid pighead. Zhong Xiuhan scolded again. Do you know my current situation? Do you know what great-grandfather said? Do you know that I'm... At this point Zhong Xiuhan seemed to have lost all the strength in her body. She collapsed on the floor in the room, sobbing softly. Senior apprentice sister, senior apprentice sister. Outside the room Zhong Haoren panicked and shouted, Don't cry, don't cry. If you're annoying me I'll leave right now, please don't cry. Zhong Haoren, you stupid pighead. Zhong Xiuhan cried as she said, If you dare to take a step out of this orchid of the valley, see if I don't ever see you again, not even a word about you. Yes, yes. Zhong Haoran immediately said, I'll stand right here, not even a step away, not even a step away. At the end of his sentence, Zhong Haoran hesitated again. But, senior apprentice sister, you're so annoying. You're already crying. If I don't leave you, you're still crying. What should I do? Zhong Xiuhan was so angry that she laughed and scolded, You stupid person, when did I say I was annoying you? Didn't you just ask me to leave? Zhong Haoran scratched his head and asked curiously. That was just then, this is now. Zhong Xiuhan said. Okay, yes, I know. Zhong Haoran nodded like a chick pecking at rice. After a while, Zhong Xiuhan's crying gradually subsided. She said softly, Haoran, you've been in the orchid of the valley for more than a month, and you've been delaying your cultivation. Moreover, it's hard to explain to the clan. You'd better leave quickly. Senior apprentice sister, are you talking to me? Zhong Haoran was obviously not used to the name Haoran, and said nervously. Of course, if not you, who else? Zhong Xiuhan said anxiously. Everyone in the orchid of the valley is resting. Who else can I call? Yes, yes. Zhong Haoran panicked again. You don't have to rush back. Your matter is more important than anything else. As long as you can recover, I won't be afraid even if I don't cultivate in the future, even if the clan leader banishes me to the orchid of the valley to reflect on my mistakes. Why you wish? Zhong Xiuhan knew that Zhong Haoran had no other thoughts, but when she heard those words, her heart was filled with sweetness. It was far more sincere than I'll accompany you to the ends of the world, to the ends of the earth. Yes, yes. Zhong Haoran did not understand what he had said wrong and quickly nodded. Looking at Zhong Haoran's panicked expression, Zhong Yuehan was worried for a while. After listening for a while, she said, Haoran, there are many beautiful female cultivators in the Zhong family. You just need to hurry up and cultivate. Even if you don't reach the foundation establishment stage, there will be many women who want to marry you. Why do you have to be like this? Chapter 21:11. Me? Zhong Haoran's scalp was about to explode when he heard Zhong Xiuhan mention a marriage alliance. He was almost incoherent. I don't want to marry someone else. I just want to see senior sister every day, that's enough. Sigh. Zhong Xiuhan knew that it was impossible to get any sweet words out of Zhong Haoran's mouth. This sentence was the limit of what Zhong Haoran could say. Haoran, do you know that I've become a cripple now? Zhong Xiuhan clenched her teeth and tears were about to fall. I know. Zhong Haoran immediately said. I know that senior sister couldn't reach foundation establishment that day and forcefully took the second foundation establishment pill. Because your meridians couldn't hold more true qi, they exploded. If your meridians can't be repaired, you won't be able to cultivate in the future. You'll be the same as a mortal. Damn Haoran, can't you be more tactful? Zhong Xiuhan said angrily again. Just these words of yours will anger me to death. Yes, I won't say it, I won't say it. Zhong Haoran hurriedly replied. Sai, since you know, you should know the pros and cons of this. Zhong Xiuhan said faintly. Even family head, a golden core cultivator, was helpless after seeing it. That Xiao Hua just reached foundation establishment. What can he do? Senior sister, Zhong Haoran shook his head. You can't say that. Although Xiao Hua's cultivation isn't as high as family head's, but he's a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. It's impossible that the Imperial Thunder sect doesn't have a pill to repair meridians, right? Sai, Haoran, my meridians aren't simply damaged. My entire body's meridians are broken. I heard that the Xiaoyu continent has the heaven-mending pill. Only that thing can reconnect my meridians. However, that's a legendary item. Moreover, even if they have it, what can I use to exchange for it? Zhong Xiuhan sighed. Don't forget, you and I are just two insignificant disciples of the Zhong family. Now that I'm a cripple, other than you, other than the widows and widows of the Lily of the Valley, who else would think of me? Senior Marshal Sister, Zhong Haoran called out, don't be sad. We have to ask before we know, right? If Xiao Hua really has that heavenly mending pill, it has to have a price. Even if I don't have spirit stones now, wait until I reach foundation establishment, wait until I reach Jindan, I will definitely return this favor to Xiao Hua. Silly Haoran. Zhong Xiuhan sighed again. Just based on your simple words, how could Xiao Hua give you the pill? What do you mean? Zhong Haoran seemed to wake up. Does senior sister mean that you agree to look for Xiao Hua? Humph, your legs and mouth are on your body, why are you asking me? Zhong Yuehan scolded. But if you don't agree, I don't dare to go. Zhong Haoren was in a difficult position. What if I ask for the pill and you don't take it? I begged you for more than a month before you agreed. If I went without saying a word, wouldn't you be even angrier? Seeing your sincerity, I agree. Zhong Yuehan chuckled. That's great. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed, then smiled bitterly and said somewhat pitifully, Senior Marshal Sister, can I take a step? Since you didn't let me move, I didn't dare to move at all. Now my feet are numb. You deadhead. Zhong Yuehan said angrily, can't you secretly move? Yes, I will secretly move now. Zhong Haoren said immediately. Ai, it's been more than a month since you saw Xiaohua. He has already left, where are you going to find him? Zhong Yuehan waited until Zhong Haoren stamped his feet, then said, besides, how can Xiaohua have the heavenly mending pill? Hearing Zhong Yuehan's words, Zhong Haoren comforted, even if Xiaohua left, Marshal Uncle Yi Jing definitely has his communication talisman. I will ask Marshal Uncle Yi Jing to come over first. As for whether Xiaohua has the heavenly mending pill or not, if he doesn't, Imperial Thunder Sect should have it, right? Haoren, you are too naive. Zhong Yuehan looked at Zhong Haoren with heartache. At this time, the sky was already bright, and the rays of light reflected on Zhong Haoren's extremely sincere face. The eyes on his face were so clear, and no words of praise could compare to a glance from his eyes. Zhong Yuehan couldn't help but feel sour in her heart. Why didn't she see it earlier? Or perhaps she shouldn't have been too reckless that day. If she didn't build her foundation, then so be it. If she could protect this sincere Zhong Haoren, it would be 100 times better than the current situation. Oh, it's daybreak again. Zhong Haoren looked at Zhong Yuehan's tearful face and said with a smile, Senior sister, wait for me. What are you going to do? Zhong Yuehan asked curiously, every morning, you will immediately come here for an hour, what are you going to do? This. Zhong Haoren hesitated and said, I won't hide anything from you, but this matter, you can't know about it for the time being. You dare. Zhong Yuehan said angrily, you were fine just now, why are you not listening to me now? Do you think I can ignore you just because I can ignore you? Senior sister, Zhong Haoren's face was extremely red and his eyes were wide open. He quickly waved his hand and said, Senior sister, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but once I tell you it won't work. Go, don't force me. Hearing Zhong Haoren's words, Zhong Yuehan's eyes reddened again. She lowered her head and said, Haoren, you go. I won't ask any more. You still want to talk to me? Zhong Haoren was a little troubled. If you want to go quickly. If you're too slow, I won't talk to you. Zhong Yuehan didn't forget to reprimand Zhong Haoren even though her eyes were red. Yes. Zhong Haoren was overjoyed. He quickly walked out and activated the flying talisman. He flew over the small lake beside the orchid of the valley and flew towards the mountain closest to the lake. That mountain wasn't high, but it was the highest mountain in the area. Zhong Haoren flew for a while before he reached the peak. At this time, the sun had already risen and shone on the mountain peak. The biting cold wind on the mountain peak was somewhat warm. Zhong Haoren walked familiarly to a stone slab on the mountain peak. The stone slab was unusually clean, completely different from the dust on the rocks nearby. Zhong Haoren's eyes looked at the bright red sun in the east. He knelt on the stone slab and kowtowed 9 times in a row. He said very sincerely, Heavens above, I Zhong Haoren, am truly an insignificant cultivator. I Zhong Haoren, am now prostrating myself before the heavens. With my incomparably humble heart, I beg the heavens once again. My senior sister's meridians have been destroyed and she can no longer cultivate. I, Zhong Haoren, am willing to exchange my meridians for her so that she can continue cultivating. I don't know if my words will reach the heavens, but I am willing to use my heart's sincerity to believe that the heavens will open their eyes and hear my prayers. Chapter 21:12. If this request is too difficult, please give me the heaven-mending pill, so that I can heal senior sister's meridians. If my request is not successful, I hope that Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder Sect can bring the pill with him to help this kid. As long as senior sister can be happy, this kid is willing to break my bones. Although Zhong Haoren was very clumsy in front of Zhong Yuehan, he was extremely skilled in saying these words. If he hadn't been thinking for a long time, then as he said, he had been praying for dozens of days or even hundreds of days. After praying, Zhong Haoren stood up and prepared to leave the stone slab. However, at this moment, his heart moved and a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. He knelt down again and kowtowed 9 times. At this time his forehead was already red. Zhong Haoren said, "This kid, Zhong Haoren, is here to worship Senior Xiaohua. If you are still in Ming country, please hear this kid's heartfelt words, please come back quickly. This kid, Zhong Haoren, is begging Senior Xiaohua. I hope that you have the heaven-mending pill in your storage bag. Even if you don't have the heaven-mending pill, the Imperial Thunder Sect also has the secret formula to repair the meridians of the whole body. I hope that the heavens can borrow Senior Xiaohua's hand to fulfill this little request of mine. If Senior Xiaohua can cure Senior Sister, this kid will definitely. Zhong Haoren said a few words, but he couldn't think of anything. After all, he also heard this method of praying from his grandmother. It was a helpless method when one's strength was exhausted. He was forced to kowtow and beg like this because he had no other choice. Moreover, when he saw Xiaohua that day, he thought that Xiaohua had kindly given them the pill before. That kind of desire, that kind of eagerness involuntarily grew. He was like a person who fell into the water and met a straw. He used all his strength to reach out and grab it, regardless of whether this straw could save him or not. He unilaterally believed that Xiaohua could definitely bring about a turnaround for his senior sister. However, when he really wanted to make a promise to Xiaohua, he couldn't find the right words. After all, Xiaohua was not the heavens and some words were not suitable. Zhong Haoren hesitated for a moment and finally said, "If Senior Xiaohua is able to heal Senior Sister's meridians, then Junior Zhong Haoren will definitely kowtow to Senior Xiaohua every morning and evening, kowtow to him for his great achievements, kowtow to him for his longevity." After saying all this, Zhong Haoren really couldn't think of anything else, so he stood up and went down the mountain. However, what no one expected was that in the distant cave, within the Buddha fire in Xiaohua's Buddha heart that was cultivating with shui, a fine mark suddenly appeared. That fine mark was extremely fine and faint, and even Xiaohua's Buddha sense couldn't see it. At this time, Xiaohua was meditating with his eyes closed. Suddenly he sensed something and opened his eyes. He looked around strangely and thought, it seems like something happened? And, it seems to be in the direction of Zhongling Mountain Village? It must be that old man Zhong who is scheming against this young master. Xiaohua sneered, "This young master won't fall for it." However, when Xiaohua closed his eyes again, he opened them again after a moment. He frowned and pondered, "No, this feeling is different from the feeling of danger in the past. It's an indescribable feeling. It seems to be coming from the Buddha Sarira, and not from the hands of karma in this space. Should I go or not?" Xiaohua was a little hesitant. After all, he had just disturbed Zhongling Mountain Village last night, and Zhong Tianyao was definitely furious there. If he went now, he would be fighting with his life on the line. "Husband, what are you doing?" Shui was very sensitive and sensed it. This. Xiaohua didn't know how to explain it to Shui, and smiled apologetically. "Your husband's heart is a little uneasy, as if something happened at Zhongling Mountain Village?" Sudden inspiration? Shui was stunned and said in astonishment, "This seems to be a legendary great ability, right?" "What do you mean?" Xiaohua was also astonished. "When I was young, I heard from my uncle that when the ancient almighty cultivators cultivated to a very high level, they would have a kind of magical ability to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. As long as there was something related to them, they would be able to do it on a whim. They could even pinch their fingers to know what it was and choose the most beneficial thing for them." That's right. Isn't this the hands of karma? Xiaohua's eyes spun rapidly as he thought to himself. "Husband, if you don't have a bad feeling, I suggest you go and take a look." Shui suggested. "Who knows, there might be something related to you there. Maybe it's the gold leaf that you're thinking about." Not bad, you have a point." Xiaohua thought about the gold leaf and the Buddha Sarira and nodded. "My wife, please cultivate in the formation. Your husband will be back soon." Xiaohua left the cave and changed his direction, and slowly flew toward Zhongling Mountain Village. However, after flying for a while, Xiaohua gradually changed his direction. He was actually heading toward the peak of the Orchid of the Valley. Isn't this the brat called Zhong Haoren? Xiaohua's divine sense was searching, and he saw Zhong Haoren, who was heading to Zhongling Mountain Village to look for Zhong Yejing. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua returned to his original appearance and pretended not to know anything as he flew past Zhong Haoren. "So, Senior Xiao? I didn't see wrongly, right?" They looked like they were already in their twilight years. Everyone looked at Xiao Hua and Zhong Haoren, their listless eyes unable to stir up the slightest ripple. Xiao Hua had already scanned this place with his divine perception, so he didn't find it strange. He followed Zhong Haoren to an exquisite little house. "Haoren? You're back so soon?" Zhong Xiuhan obviously heard Zhong Haoren's footsteps and said happily, "Martial Uncle Jing, she didn't come?" "Hee," Zhong Haoren said with a smile. "I didn't even see Martial Uncle Jing," Zhong Haoren said before entering the little house. "Humph, Zhong Haoren, you pighead. I told you. That mysterious thing of yours is completely useless," Zhong Xiuhan scolded. However, just as she finished scolding, Zhong Xiuhan was stunned. Wasn't Xiao Hua following behind Zhong Haoren? That Xiao Hua whom she had met several decades ago and whose appearance hadn't changed in the slightest? Zhong Xiuhan couldn't sense Xiao Hua's cultivation, but she didn't dare to be negligent. Just as she reached out to cover her mouth, she immediately bowed and greeted, "Junior Zhong Xiuhan greets Senior Xiao." Seeing Zhong Xiuhan and Zhong Haoren's deep affection, Xiao Hua felt very comfortable in his heart. He thought about how the two of them were still bickering outside Mingxi even though they were already injured. And bickering wasn't right. It was Zhong Xiuhan who was bullying Zhong Haoren. And now, Zhong Xiuhan had already become a cripple, but Zhong Haoren still didn't abandon her and tried his best to think of a way. He really lived up to the name Haoren. Chapter 21:13. Suddenly Xiao Hua remembered the oath that Zhong Haoren made to him, and then looked at Zhong Yuehan thoughtfully. Zhong Yuehan was pretty and she looked like she was used to ordering Zhong Haoren around. Although Xiao Hua was here and she had changed to be respectful, she didn't take Zhong Haoren's carefulness seriously. "I've been thinking too much." Xiao Hua laughed in his heart and helped Zhong Yuehan up. "Zhong Yuehan, this Xiao was just passing by and happened to meet Zhong Haoren." This Xiao didn't know what he said. This Xiao didn't have any heaven-mending pill, and I didn't know that the Imperial Thunder Sect had such a miraculous pill. This Xiao just thought it was a coincidence. Zhong Yuehan was very disappointed, and she couldn't hide the deep sense of loss between her eyebrows. However, Xiao Hua immediately changed the topic. "However, since the heavens let this Xiao pass by and meet two fellow Taoists, this Xiao might want to take a look. Perhaps the heavens have already given this Xiao a method to cure you? Senior Xiao, please be merciful." Zhong Haoren couldn't help but salute from the side. "Yes, Senior Xiao, please help." Zhong Yuehan couldn't help but feel hopeful. Although Xiao Hua was a Foundation Establishment cultivator, he was from the Imperial Thunder Sect, which was 100 times stronger than the Zhong family, right? And Xiao Hua waved his hand, turned his head and asked, "Zhong Haoren, what is this place?" "Senior Xiao, this is the Orchid of the Valley Courtyard, a place where the disciples of my Zhong family reflect on their mistakes." Zhong Haoren smiled apologetically. "At the same time, there are also some old and weak people who are recuperating here." "Oh, so it's like that." Xiao Hua nodded and said, "Zhong Haoren, you go out first. Wait for this Xiao to take a look at Zhong Yuehan's injuries, then we will make a plan." "Yes, this junior will go out now. This junior will guard the door." Zhong Haoren didn't dare to say anything and carefully walked out and closed the door. Xiao Hua glanced around and said, "Zhong Yuehan, close your eyes as if you're cultivating." "Yes, this junior understands." Zhong Yuehan obediently sat cross-legged and closed her eyes. Xiao Hua first scanned Zhong Yuehan with his divine sense, and then stretched out his left hand, two fingers strangely placed on Zhong Yuehan's wrist. Xiao Hua himself also sat down cross-legged. He actually used the Huanqi technique. After a while, Xiao Hua furrowed his brows and withdrew his finger. Immediately after, another strand of true origin flowed into Zhong Xiuhan's meridians. However, just as the true qi began to circulate in Zhong Xiuhan's meridians, a feeling of enlightenment, or perhaps a sense of déjà vu spontaneously arose. It was as if he had treated such damaged meridians before. Meridian nourishing pill. Xiao Hua almost groaned. A familiar pill and pill recipe appeared in his mind, and even more pill refining techniques and pill recipes gradually flashed in his mind. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly let go of his hand. He closed his eyes and carefully captured the memories that flowed like a fountain. Zhong Yuehan waited for a long time, but seeing that Xiao Hua didn't do anything, she unconsciously opened her eyes. When he saw Xiao Hua's expression, he thought that Xiao Hua was thinking carefully. Therefore, she didn't dare to make a sound and only waited patiently by the side. After about half an hour, Zhong Haoren, who was outside the hut, was somewhat impatient. After all, Xiao Hua only wanted to see what the situation was and didn't say that he could definitely cure it. Just as Zhong Haoren was worrying about his gains and losses, he heard Xiao Hua call out from inside, "Zhong Haoren, come in." Zhong Haoren heard Xiao Hua's indifferent tone and felt that there was nothing special. He unconsciously became happy. He pushed open the door and quickly walked in. He bowed and said, "Senior Xiao Yu, and this Xiao has already seen Zhong Xiuhan's meridians." Xiao Hua looked at the cultivator whose eyes were filled with joy and said with a smile, "Although the situation is very bad, this Xiao has some confidence." "Really?" Zhong Haoren was ecstatic when he heard this. His knees went soft and he was about to kneel in front of Xiao Hua. And Xiao Hua hurriedly waved his hand and stopped Zhong Haoren from kneeling. He looked at Zhong Xiuhan again. "However, I can't treat it right now." "What?" Zhong Haoren asked anxiously. "This Xiao still has some things that I haven't gathered," Xiao Hua said indifferently. "What does Senior want?" "This junior will help you find it." Zhong Haoren patted his chest and said. Xiao Hua held his chin with his hand and looked at Zhong Haoren. He seemed to have made a decision. He patted Zhong Haoren's shoulder and said, "Come with me, I will explain it to you." "Yes." Zhong Haoren looked at Zhong Xiuhan and followed Xiao Hua out. However, after a moment, Zhong Haoren came back in a daze. His eyes were blank and he slightly avoided Zhong Xiuhan's gaze. "Haoren, what's wrong? What did Senior Xiao say?" Zhong Xiuhan said with some worry, "Is Senior Xiao's request too high?" No. When Zhong Haoren heard this, the worry on his face disappeared. He smiled and said, "Senior Xiao's request is very simple. You don't need to think too much. Senior Xiao said that it won't take long, at most a month, to cure your meridians." "Oh, really?" Zhong Xiuhan was overjoyed and almost jumped up from the ground. "So I can continue to cultivate?" "Of course." Zhong Haoren nodded affirmatively. "Thank you, Haoren." Zhong Xiuhan excitedly hugged Zhong Haoren and nestled her head on Zhong Haoren's chest. If it was before, Zhong Haoren would definitely be dizzy and might even fall on the ground in joy. But this time, Zhong Haoren's face only reddened for a moment and a trace of a bitter smile hung on his mouth. He stretched out his stiff arm and his trembling hand stroked Zhong Xiuhan's beautiful hair. Zhong Xiuhan felt Zhong Haoren's action, and how could she still scold him? She only tightened her hands and firmly hugged Zhong Haoren's waist. At this moment, Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through the small room and a trace of a smile flashed on the corner of his mouth. This smile had an indescribable meaning. Meridian Nourishing Pill. It's a pill that specializes in repairing meridians and dantian. The main ingredients are crimson pearl grass and scarlet flame grass. Xiao Hua's smile flashed and a happy expression appeared on his face. He thought to himself, obviously, just based on the names of these two spiritual herbs, Xiaoyu continent definitely doesn't have them. However, these two kinds of spiritual herbs, as well as some supplementary spiritual herbs, are in my mind. Just now, I roughly searched through the space and unexpectedly, there are ready-made spiritual herbs. Moreover, they're also very old. It seems that they were born from the seeds of the 100 herbs gate that won't germinate. This means that the meridian soothing pill should be able to be refined successfully. However, whether or not it can completely repair Zhong Xiuhan's meridians, I don't have much confidence. Of course, if the meridian soothing pill is effective, then it would be the heaven mending pill that they speak of. If something happens when Xue Xue is building her foundation, then this pill will still be useful. Chapter 21:14. It seems that this meridian nourishing pill or heaven mending pill must be refined this time. Xiao Hua made up his mind and returned to the cave. Seeing Xiao Hua return, Xue Xue naturally asked again. Xiao Hua didn't hide anything and told her the story. Xue Xue was already very surprised that Xiao Hua could refine the heaven mending pill, but after thinking about it again, she realized that the heaven mending pill was far inferior to Xiao Hua's sudden inspiration. "Husband, I really don't know how to envy you." Xue Xue smiled bitterly. "You have to know, you have just reached foundation establishment. If you were at spirit severing stage at this time, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. Although that is an ancient magical ability, there are still some relics in the cultivation sects and some mutated magical abilities. For example, some deducing money is to sprinkle a handful of money left behind from ancient times on the ground and use some special magical abilities to deduce what will happen. Husband, you don't need to do anything and can sense what is going to happen." "Maybe." Xiao Hua scratched his head. He couldn't tell Xue Xue about the Buddhist sect, so he couldn't explain the sensing of the Buddha's relics. However, Xiao Hua still said, "In that case, I will start refining the heaven mending pill." You and I have stayed here for a long time, let's change places and go to Orchid of the Valley courtyard. Zhong Tianyao will never think of that place. Anything is fine. Xue Xue smiled sweetly, with husband's arrangement, anywhere is fine. Then Xue Xue said apologetically, husband actually, I'm afraid this experience. I'm afraid I've delayed your cultivation. What do you mean by that? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and asked curiously. Xue Xue said, husband is now at the middle stage of foundation establishment, so you should cultivate in seclusion. Moreover, husband can refine pills by himself, so you don't need to rely on the sex supply. Taking pills while improving your cultivation, the late stage of foundation establishment is just around the corner. And you, for me, ran so far and involved so many trivial matters. How can you improve your cultivation? Hee. Xiao Hua smiled and reached out to hold Xue Xue's soft hand and said warmly, for men some things can't be done and some things must be done. Accompanying my wife to cultivate is what I must do as a husband. As for cultivation? Can't you see that your husband has already refined the brilliant flower pill? Are you taking it every day and cultivating every day? When Xue Xue heard this, her heart was as sweet as honey. She clenched her fists and said, I always feel like I'm a burden to my husband. Otherwise, my husband would be able to go further. However, there were times when she thought, if cultivation was like this, so what if I didn't build my foundation? If we walk like this for the rest of our lives and look at the sea for the rest of our lives, wouldn't it be more beautiful? It's better not to build a foundation? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He knew that Xue Xue seemed to be very afraid of foundation establishment. She was afraid that she would lose her life if she didn't pass, so she didn't dare to enter foundation establishment. Thus, Xiao Hua smiled and said, husband refined this heaven-mending pill for wife's sake. If wife, and husband is only saying in case something happens to wife, this heaven-mending pill can also be useful. Xue Xue's eyes flashed with a trace of gloom, but she still smiled and said, husband, aren't you cursing me? Forget it, let's not talk about it. Let's leave. Okay, as Xiao Hua spoke, he put away the rabbit spell formation and brought Xue Xue to the mountain peak where Zhong Haoren made his wish. He released the puppets and opened 2 caves on the stone wall. Then he set up the rabbit spell formation and protected these 2 caves. Only then did he start refining the meridian nourishing pill in one of the caves. The technique used to refine the meridian nourishing pill was completely different from the Dawn Rain continent. All kinds of spells were used, and they all faintly stirred up changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There were even some sounds of wind and thunder. This made Xiao Hua quite puzzled, because in his memory there weren't so many strange phenomena. However, in any case, Xiao Hua started refining the meridian nourishing pill. His memories regarding alchemy also increased, and his alchemy technique also neared perfection. At the same time when Xiao Hua was refining the pill, Zhong Yejing was flying out of Zhongling Mountain Villa with a tall and sturdy cultivator. That cultivator's face was unruly, and his slender eyes were very disdainful. From time to time he would reveal an impatient expression. Brother Dong, Zhong Yejing saw this situation, and there was a trace of worry on her face. She said in a low voice, this matter concerns the rise and fall of my Zhong family. It's very important. You have to listen to sister's arrangements. Okay, that cultivator was Zhong Yedong. With an impatient expression, he flicked his sleeve and said, you've said this countless times since we left the villa. I naturally know what to do. Yes. Zhong Yejing was also helpless. At this time the Zhongling Mountain Villa was in a state of unrest. Everyone else was on guard, afraid that Xiao Hua would suddenly kill his way into the villa. No one dared to leave without permission. Only she and Zhong Yedong were temporarily unable to help, so they were sent out by Zhong Tianyao. Their purpose was very simple, and that was to leave Zhongling Mountain Villa to look for help. There were many cultivation families in the south of Ming country, but there weren't many families with profound cultivation who had reached the Golden Core realm. And the closest families to the center of Yun City were the Fei family of Ji City and the Qin family of Fan City. These 2 families' patriarchs, Fei Xiqing and Qin Kai, were already in the early Golden Core realm, which was the same as Zhong Tianyao. Zhong Tianyao wanted to capture Xiao Hua or even kill him, but he couldn't do it alone. Therefore he set his sights on the 2 nearby cultivation families. After flying for several hours, a hot aura began to appear in front of them. A red mountain range appeared in front of them. Zhong Yejing knew that this was the Red Crane Mountain where the Fei family of Ji City was located. Brother Dong. Zhong Yejing said in a low voice, but before she could finish, Zhong Yedong sneered, are you the brother or am I the brother? Do I need you to remind me again and again? After entering Red Crane Mountain, I'll just treat myself as a mute, okay? That's not necessary. Zhong Yejing smiled apologetically and said, Brother Dong, just don't get angry. How can I not get angry? Your words made me angry before I even entered the mountain. Zhong Yedong said angrily. Seniors, where did you come from? Did you come to pay a visit to my Fei family? While they were talking, several aura refining disciples on duty flew over and asked with a bow. Damn it, if I didn't come to pay a visit to your Fei family, why did I come to this Red Crane Mountain? Zhong Yedong's words made Zhong Yejing feel helpless. Seniors, where did you come from? Why did you come to my Fei family? Fortunately, Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong were foundation-building cultivators, so how could the aura-refining disciples dare to be disrespectful? They didn't dare to take Zhong Yedong's words seriously and still asked respectfully. We're disciples of Yun City's Zhong family. We came to Red Crane Mountain this time because we have an important matter to discuss with your family's patriarch. Please inform him. Zhong Yejing knew she had a request, so she didn't dare to be negligent. She stepped forward and said in a warm voice. This. The disciple on duty was a little embarrassed. He smiled apologetically and said, It's not that Junior doesn't want to inform seniors. If it was someone else, it would have been fine, but Patriarch has been discussing tool refining techniques with Fan City's Qin family's patriarch these past few days. He's already told us not to meet ordinary people. Zhong Yejing understood that the so-called ordinary people must be cultivators below the Golden Core realm. However, Zhong Yedong sneered and said, What do you mean ordinary people? I've traveled a long way just to pay a visit to old Master Fei, so how did I become an ordinary person? If I had nothing to do, who would come here? It's so hot here, how can it be more comfortable than my Zhongling Mountain Villa? Ihi, senior, please turn back. The disciples on duty didn't seem to give Zhong Yedong any face and refused politely with a smile. Zhong Yedong waved his hand and was about to use a confinement technique. Zhong Yejing panicked and quickly stood in front of Zhong Yedong. She really didn't want to come out with Zhong Yedong, but for their safety, Zhong Tianyao made this arrangement. However, she didn't expect him to attack an aura-refining disciple the moment he saw the Fei family's disciple. How was this the attitude of someone who came to ask for help? Brother Dong. Zhong Yejing clapped her hand and took out an arrow token. She said angrily, Do you recognize my Zhong family's patriarch token? Zhong Yedong's face tightened, and he hurriedly stopped and respectfully saluted the arrow token. Zhong Yedong greets patriarch. Brother Dong, fortunately, you know that seeing the patriarch token is the same as seeing the patriarch. Zhong Yejing snorted and no longer paid attention to him. She turned to the disciple on duty and said, This is my Zhong family's patriarch token. My Zhong family has indeed encountered a crisis. If the patriarch wasn't in the mountain villa, he would have come long ago. Please take the patriarch token and report to him. So it's like that. The disciple on duty obviously knew the importance of the patriarch token. He stretched out his hand and took the arrow token. He smiled apologetically and said, In that case, please wait for a moment. This junior will go and report to him. Thank you. Zhong Yejing nodded. After the disciple flew away, the other disciple smiled apologetically and said, Seniors, please follow us. Please wait at the mountain gate. Fei family's Mount Feiha had earth fire. Below the mountain range, crimson flames surged. It was similar to the Flame Forest Mountains. Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong followed the disciples to the mountainside. A huge rock was emitting a faint heat. At this temperature, there was no green vegetation. Similarly, brown thorns covered the entire Mount Feiha. Not long after, two early-stage foundation-building cultivators flew over together with the Zhong family's patriarch token in their hands. Seeing the two cultivators with the same cultivation level as her, Zhong Yejing was delighted. She knew that Fei Xiqing had agreed to meet them, so she sent the two cultivators to welcome them. Fellow Taoist Zhong, please. The two cultivators flew over and politely handed the Zhong family's patriarch token back to Zhong Yejing. They smiled and said, I am Fei Ming and this is my junior brother Fei Yulian. The two of us are here to welcome the two fellow Taoists under the orders of the patriarch. Well said, well said. Zhong Yedong finally smiled. Zhong Yejing took the token and returned the greeting, Thank you, fellow Taoists. Then Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong followed the two Fei family disciples into Mount Feiha and arrived at the Fei family's guest hall. The Fei clan was different from the Zhong clan. They didn't build their foundation in the manner Chapter 21:15. Fei Ming and Fei Yulian chatted with Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong while the low-level disciples served them tea. In the beginning, Zhong Yejing was still very polite, but after 2 hours she became somewhat impatient. After all, they had already been out for several days, and Xiao Hua would sneak attack Zhongling Mountain Villa at any time. Every sneak attack would inevitably take the lives of dozens of people. Zhong Yejing could not wait any longer. She couldn't wait to invite Fei Xiqing and Qin Kai to Zhongling Mountain Villa and capture Xiao Hua. In fact, it was a bit strange. If Qin Kai wasn't at Feihe Mountain, Zhong Yejing would have invited Fei Xiqing and Dao Fanqing, and it would take much longer than now. However, since Zhong Yejing already knew that Qin Kai happened to be at Mount Feihe, she could invite both of them at the same time and save a lot of time. She already had the idea of going back immediately. Therefore this small wait would seem very long. Fellow Taoist Fei. Before Zhong Yejing could speak, Zhong Yedong spoke first. He had been patient before, but now he couldn't help it. What's wrong with your Fei family head? Why hasn't he come out yet? I'm still waiting to go back. Fei Ming and Fei Yulian were obviously stunned. They looked at each other and Fei Yulian said indifferently, "How would I know what the family head is doing? He is a golden core cultivator, and he doesn't need to tell others what he does. Since he wants us to accompany him, we will accompany him. If fellow Taoist Zhong is impatient, you can go. Regardless of whether fellow Taoist Zhong stays or leaves, my Fei family welcomes you." Zhong Yedong slammed his hand on the chair and said angrily, "Fei Yulian, is this how your Fei family treats its guests? What's wrong with my Fei family's hospitality?" Fei Yulian also stood up and said coldly, "My Fei clan will treat any cultivator who is polite and courteous with respect. My Fei clan will also not treat anyone who is rude with respect." "You brat, you dare to call me rude?" Zhong Yedong was angry. He slammed his hand as if he was going to take out a yellow talisman. Zhong Yejing was anxious. She quickly grabbed his hand and said, "Brother Dong, don't forget the family head's orders." "But..." Zhong Yedong's face was red, and his veins were bulging. "But what? My Fei family doesn't treat you with respect?" Fei Yulian sneered and said, "I didn't say that fellow Taoist Zhong was rude. Why did fellow Taoist Zhong walk into the trap yourself?" "Hee, fellow Taoist Fei, please don't blame me." Zhong Yejing smiled apologetically. "Brother Dong is also anxious. What you don't know is that my Zhong clan has encountered difficulties. If we delay for even half a day, I'm afraid that dozens of lives will be lost. So, I hope that fellow Taoist can make an exception. Please ask the Fei family's elders to come out." Zhong said Yulian was Yulian, and Yulian Yan. "Oh." Fei Ming raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhong Yedong. Zhong Yedong was panting heavily and looked at him coldly. "You can't do that. I'm afraid people will say that my Fei family treats our guests poorly." Fei Ming waved his hand and refused. "Don't say that. This is I's goodwill. It has nothing to do with hospitality." Zhong Yejing smiled and stuffed the storage pouch into Fei Ming's hands. Fei Ming accepted it after a slight decline. Then he smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhong, please wait a moment. Family head and Senior Qin have talked for a long time. I'm sure your mouth is dry. This humble Taoist will go serve tea and see if the two seniors have time." Zhong Yejing was overjoyed. She cupped her hands and said, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Fei." Fei Ming and Fei Yulian stood up and looked coldly at Zhong Yedong, who was still standing there. They turned around and left the guest hall. After the two left, Zhong Yejing sighed and said, "Brother Dong, sit down. People have to lower their heads when they're under someone else's roof. The two elders will be here soon. Don't say anything else." Zhong Yedong didn't say anything and sat silently on the chair. Another hour passed by, and two divine senses suddenly swept in from outside the guest hall, locking onto Zhong Yedong and Zhong Yejing in an instant. The divine senses were very powerful, and Zhong Yedong and Zhong Yejing immediately understood that two Golden Core Realm seniors had come out. They didn't dare to be negligent. They immediately stood up from their chairs and walked quickly to greet them. Sure enough, as soon as the two of them took 2 steps, 2 cultivators in fiery red Taoist robes fluttered in. The first was a thin and tall old man with a goatee, small eyes and a face full of wrinkles. He was Fei Xiqing, the family head of the Fei family. Behind him was a middle-aged man with bright eyes, a red face and a full beard. He was Qin Kai, the family head of the Qin family. Junior greets Senior Fei and Senior Qin. Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yejing hurriedly stopped and bowed. "En?" Fei Xiqing waved her sleeves in response. Qin Kai ignored her and followed Fei Xiqing to take a seat at the head of the table. Fellow Taoist Fei. As soon as Qin Kai sat down, he immediately smiled and said, "The artifact refining method fellow Taoist spoke of is truly a unique one. I really hadn't thought of it before. If this method is successful, our 2-sex artifact refining efficiency will increase by 40%. Hehe, isn't this all thanks to fellow Taoist Qin? If fellow Taoist Qin didn't show me the Qin family's refining method, I wouldn't have been able to comprehend such an uncommon method. Haha, it's all thanks to fellow Taoist Fei. I only get 30% of the credit." Qin Kai laughed and said, "It seems that the Fei family and the Qin family will be closer in the future." That's right. In the southern part of Meng country, only our 2 families can refine. If we cooperate, we will both benefit. If we don't, we will both suffer. Fei Xiqing also smiled. Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong still stood there respectfully, not daring to take a seat. They could only listen to the 2 chatting, not daring to interrupt at all. As for Zhong Yedong, his eyes were staring at the ground, no one knew what he was thinking. After a long while, Fei Xiqing seemed to be thirsty. She looked up and said, Why hasn't the boy who serves tea come yet?" When she looked up, she saw Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong. Therefore, Fei Xiqing asked faintly, "What happened in the Zhong family? Why did Zhong Tianyao, who has always looked down on our refining family, send the 2 of you here?" Zhong Yejing didn't dare to neglect Fei Xiqing's question. She hurried forward and bowed respectfully. Junior Zhong Yejing of the Zhong family of Yun City greets Senior Fei. What's the matter?" Fei Xiqing said faintly, but her eyes were fixed on Qin Kai. "Senior, please know that our Zhong family has encountered an extremely difficult matter." Zhong Yejing told them about the matter that Zhong Tianyao had instructed her to do. Then she took off the storage pouch from her waist and handed it over. She smiled and said, "This is a token of my appreciation for inviting the 2 seniors over. I hope that the other seniors will kindly accept it." Chapter 21:16. A disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect? Fei Xiqing didn't look at the storage bag. She frowned and shook her head. Although the Imperial Thunder Sect isn't in the country of Shi, it's still one of the biggest sects in the country of Shi. It's far from being comparable to the cultivation families in Meng country. Your Zhong family has provoked such a disaster, yet you still want us to get involved. I haven't lost my mind yet. How can I get involved in this matter? Don't you think so, fellow Taoist Qin? Qin Kai became even colder and snappily said, "Fei Xiqing, I came to your Mount Feihe to exchange my refining experience. If the disciples of the Zhong family want to find me, they naturally have to go to Fan City. How can they find me here? When you were talking just now, I was thinking about the technique just now and didn't hear a single word. Fellow Taoist Fei, please continue. Just pretend I'm not here." Zhong Yejing, did you see that? Fei Xiqing laughed. "It's not that I don't want to help the Zhong family, but I don't have the ability. Besides, how can an early Foundation establishment cultivator of the Imperial Thunder Sect be Old Devil Zhong's opponent? In my opinion, that Old Devil Zhong has some ulterior motives. He wants to use this to trick us into entering your Zhong family's Zhong Ling Mountain village. How can I be fooled?" "Senior Fei, what do you mean by that?" Zhong Yedong couldn't help but shout, "What happened in my Zhong Ling Mountain village is the truth. This junior saw it with his own eyes. Xiaohua's flying speed is extremely fast, like a ghost, and his methods are extremely ruthless. Dozens of people in my Zhong Ling Mountain village have already died. If not for this, why would we come here to beg the 2 seniors? The Zhong family, Qin family, and Fei family are all cultivation families in Meng country. If the Imperial Thunder Sect bullies my Zhong family, they might bully the Qin family and Fei family in the future. The attitude of the 2 seniors really makes this junior disappointed. If this matter is spread out, who knows how the nearby cultivation families will deal with the 2 seniors. Moreover, the 2 seniors should first take a look at my Zhong family's intentions. If you are not satisfied." Without waiting for Zhong Yedong to finish, Fei Xiqing swung her sleeve and slapped Zhong Yedong's face. Fei Xiqing's face was somewhat gloomy as she scolded, "Ignorant child, what do you think we are? You actually dare to bargain in front of this old man? Do you think you are Zhong Tianyao? Even Zhong Tianyao wouldn't dare to be so blatant." That's right," Qin Kai said indifferently. "The 2 of us won't go, so what? Even if your Zhong clan spreads this news, who will be the one losing face? If he couldn't even catch a Foundation establishment cultivator, how could Zhong Tianyao still have the face to live in Meng country? Even if someone is making things up about me, I'll send that person to your Zhongling villa. I'd like to see who dares to cause trouble for the Imperial Lightning Sect. Seniors? Zhong Yejing hurriedly said, that's not what I meant. Where are all the disciples in charge of receiving guests? Fellow Taoist Fei, you need to properly educate the disciples of Mount Feiha. Qin Kai sneered, it's hard for this old man to even drink spirit tea. With that, Qin Kai got up and walked outside. Haha, fellow Taoist Qin, don't worry. This old man has a new spirit wine here. I'm afraid you haven't tasted it before. Why don't you give it a try? Fei Xiqing also stood up and said with a smile. Oh, what spirit wine? Old Fei, you actually have a spirit wine that this old man doesn't know about? Qin Kai's eyes lit up, but his voice was already far away. Brother Dong. Zhong Yejing looked at Zhong Yedong, whose face was green and red, and stamped her feet, not knowing what to say. Now, what should we do? Zhong Yedong, seeing that he had messed up the matter, was somewhat at a loss. I didn't mean to say that, but when the words came out of my mouth I just blurted it out. Zhong Yejing sighed. She really didn't understand why the patriarch wanted Zhong Yedong to come with her. Wouldn't any other person be stronger than him? Was it just because the two people's names were similar? Let's go, what else can we do? We can't just let the Fei clan's disciples kick us out. Zhong Yejing snappily got up. They dare. Zhong Yedong stiffened his neck and said. Why wouldn't they dare? Zhong Yejing said, didn't you see that Xiao Hua who treated my Zhongling villa as an uninhabited place? If you have the ability, capture Xiao Hua. I will go back and squat at the mountain gate. Let's see how powerful that Xiao Hua is. Zhong Yedong said excitedly. Sure enough, when Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong left the guest hall, no Fei clan's disciples came to greet them. Even when they flew away from Feiha Mountain, only the disciples on duty looked at them from afar. When Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong returned to Zhongling Villa, they carefully reported the ins and outs of the matter to Zhong Tianyao, who was guarding the ancestral hall. Unexpectedly, Zhong Tianyao didn't scold Zhong Yedong, but nodded casually and said, you have worked hard. You have rested for a few days, but I'm afraid you will have to go again. Huh? Zhong Yejing was slightly taken aback, but she didn't dare to ask any questions. She bowed respectfully and left. Zhong Yedong really did as he said. He flew to the entrance of the villa, found a place and sat down cross-legged, waiting for Xiao Hua. Third brother, what do you think? After Zhong Yejing and Zhong Yedong left, Zhong Tianyao asked faintly, Fei Xiqing and Qin Kai, those two old ghosts. Are there any problems? After listening to Zhong Tianyao's question, Zhong Peiyuan was very hesitant. His eyes flickered slightly and he didn't answer for a long time. What? Third brother, you have been traveling outside for decades, searching for materials for our Zhong clan's ancestral artifact. You have come into contact with many cultivators. Don't tell me you don't have any thoughts? Zhong Tianyao said unhappily. Sigh, I'll let the clan head know. Zhong Peiyuan smiled bitterly. If the boy hadn't left Zhongling Villa, Yin City or even Ming Country, the boy would have immediately said his thoughts. But after seeing all kinds of people, experiencing all kinds of scams and experiencing all kinds of people's hearts, the boy didn't dare to say anything. The most unpredictable thing in this world is not the cultivation method, the method of making talismans or the method of refining pills, but the human heart. The human heart is the most complicated thing in the world. The boy doesn't know what the heavenly Tao is, but in the boy's opinion, the human heart is as deep as the heavenly Tao. Zhong Tianyao nodded and said with satisfaction. What you said is very good. Actually, even I can't judge whether Qin Kai and Fei Xiqing have any bad intentions. Zhong Peifu, who was beside him, said curiously, Clan head, the boy thought that it would be enough to send Jing alone. He even thought that Jing and Dong could find one person each. But the clan head insisted that Jing and Dong should go together and invite people one by one. I remember that the clan head once said that Dong temper is irritable. He wanted to test the Fei clan and Qin clan's attitude to see if they had anything to do with this matter. If they even tolerate Dong's temper, then they must have some ulterior motives. We can't let others take advantage of us for nothing. But now Dong and Jing have been chased out. Doesn't this mean that these two clans have no ulterior motives towards our Zhong clan? They are afraid that the clan head will plot against them. Haha, so that's what I was thinking. Zhong Tianyao stroked his beard and said with a smile, but think about it again. The Qin clan and Fei clan don't have any particularly close relationship with our Zhong clan. If they have something to ask of our Zhong clan, then they will definitely have a way to deal with my plants. If they come to our Zhong clan, wouldn't that be too abnormal? Even if it's you, you won't come at once, right? This. Zhong Peifu was dumbfounded. He shook his head and said, if the clan head says so, then we really can't judge. We can only wait for Xiaohua to do whatever he wants, or we can give him the thing that he wants. How can we give it to him? Even if that thing is useless to us, we definitely can't give it to him. Zhong Peiyuan snorted coldly. If we give it to him, then we are giving our Zhong clan's face to him, allowing him to trample on it as he pleases. Besides, how should we calculate the lives of these dozens of Zhong clan disciples? But if we don't give it to him, we can't capture him, and we can't ask the other 2 golden core cultivators to help the clan head. What should we do then? Zhong Peifu asked back. Zhong Peiyuan let out a long sigh. He was also speechless. Xiaohua's flying speed was indeed formidable. The entire Zhongling mountain villa was so big. Although there were some formations protecting it, it was different from the mountain protecting formation of the cultivation sections. Xiaohua could easily break through it as if there was nothing there. Zhong Tianyao, a golden core cultivator, couldn't catch him at all. Only 3 golden core cultivators formed a triangle and trapped Xiaohua, then they could succeed. Actually, it's still a little strange. Zhong Tianyao didn't make any judgment and suddenly said, Qin Kai, that old ghost, usually stays in Fan City and doesn't come out. Why did he suddenly go to Mount Feihe during this period of time? From what Jing said, it seems that he's working together with Fei Xiqing to refine some kind of magic tool. Zhong Peiyuan reminded. Yes, that's very strange. Zhong Tianyao nodded. The 2 clans are both refining tools, and they're usually competing with each other. Small grudges constantly exist, and the 2 of them don't have any good expressions when they meet. Now that they're together, that Fei Xiqing even gave Qin Kai some spiritual wine. Could it be that Mount Feihe has some use for Qin Kai? Zhong Peiyuan probed. Or maybe, the 2 clans obtained some kind of secret tool refining technique together? Zhong Peifu also reminded. A smile appeared on Zhong Tianyao's face. He pointed with his hand and said, that's right. Since the 2 clans are busy refining tools, I'm afraid they don't have the time to scheme against my Zhong clan. This old man can also invite the 2 clans without worry. But, if the 2 of them have some kind of scheme, they'll definitely be together. Zhong Peiyuan was still frowning. They're obviously together. It's too strange. Haha, what's real is fake and what's fake is real. Zhong Tianyao laughed. I'm afraid it's because of this that I believe that the 2 of them definitely don't have any designs on my Zhongling villa. But, Zhong Peiyuan was still worried. My Zhong clan has been hiding for many years. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Qidian. Come. Chapter 21:17. Sai, that thing is the foundation of our Zhong family's future in Meng country. Naturally, we have to protect it well and not let others get it. I hope Patriarch can forgive me. If it wasn't for the boy's negligence, Xiaohua definitely wouldn't have found it. Zhong Peifu said somewhat dejectedly. It's fine. Xiaohua only knows that it's a place for refining equipment, but he doesn't know what's inside. Zhong Tianyao waved his hand and said, moreover, he's just a cultivator from Shi country. If we capture him, we'll kill him without waiting for him to speak. Even if the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples find him, can they still deny the crime of killing dozens of our Zhong family's low-level disciples? Then do we still need Jing to go to Mount Feihe? Zhong Peiyuan asked. Zhong Tianyao shook his head and said, not for the time being. Qin Kai and Fei Xiqing are refining equipment, so they don't have the mind to care about anything else. Didn't you hear what Jing said? He didn't even take the storage bag. He didn't plan to come at all. Otherwise, the things inside would be enough for him to be tempted. Boy understands. Zhong Peiyuan and Zhong Peifu nodded. Hurry up and patrol during this period of time. Don't add any more lives. Zhong Tianyao ordered. Yes. After the 2 of them left, Zhong Tianyao frowned again. He sat on the chair and sank into deep thought. Unknowingly, dozens of days passed. It was another moonless night. The entire Zhongling villa fell into an extremely tense atmosphere. Because everyone knew that the last 2 times Xiaohua entered Zhongling villa to kill people, it was at this time. If there were no accidents, he would come again tonight. Even Zhong Yedong, who was sitting at the entrance of the villa, had cold sweat in his palms. The night wind was bleak, and the sound of cicadas was terrifying. However, Xiaohua, who everyone was waiting for, was sitting cross-legged under a willow tree. In front of him, there was a person kneeling. It was Zhong Haoren. Zhong Haoren, have you decided? You won't change it? Xiao Hua said indifferently. Without any hesitation, Zhong Haoren nodded and said, That's right. Senior, you've already told me about it dozens of days ago. Over the past few days I've already thought it through. Although I don't know why you're doing this to me, I'm willing to take this risk for senior sister to continue cultivating. AI, it's not that I want to make things difficult for you. It's just that this heavenly mending pill is too strange. Someone has to pay the price for it. This is the rule of using the heavenly mending pill. Xiao Hua sighed. Hee, Senior Xiao, you don't have to feel troubled, Zhong Haoren comforted. Junior knows that such a heaven-defying thing is not easy to deal with. Junior will not let Senior take any more risks. Junior has already thought of all the possible disasters when Junior was praying. And you've been kneeling and praying on the mountain peak these past few days? This Xiao has also seen it clearly. Xiao Hua said with a smile. For you to kneel and pray to this Xiao every day, this Xiao will also do his best. In that case, I beseech Senior Xiao to take action. Zhong Haoren knelt down once again. All right. Xiao Hua flicked his large sleeve, and Zhong Haoren's entire body was unable to move, as if he was frozen. Then he heard Xiao Hua's heavenly voice in his ears. Zhong Haoren, from now on you can't speak and you can't transmit your voice. This is the price you have to pay for using the heavenly mending pill. Ah. Zhong Haoren had already thought about it for several dozen days, but he had never thought that the price would actually be like this. However, when he thought about how he could still cultivate, still build his foundation, and still stay by Zhong Xiuhan's side without breaking his limbs, so what if he could not speak? Zhong Haoren wanted to nod his head, but his entire body did not have the slightest bit of strength, nor the slightest bit of magic power. After a moment, Zhong Haoren did not see any movement from Xiao Hua. Zhong Haoren's magic power recovered, and he could also move his body. Zhong Haoren hurriedly said, Senior Xiao, He originally wanted to say that he was willing, but when he opened his mouth, not a single word came out. A burst of wuyaya sounds came and entered Zhong Haoren's ears. This is my voice? Zhong Haoren thought in his heart. However, his expectation and joy hid his disappointment. Because at this moment Xiao Hua clapped his hand, and took out a slightly red medicinal pill. Is this the heaven-mending pill? Zhong Haoren took the heaven-mending pill, and looked at the medicinal pill that did not have any medicinal fragrance, and did not have any special phenomenon. He was bewildered but still spoke out of habit. Then he pointed his finger at the medicinal pill, and a puzzled look appeared in his eyes. Don't worry, you can give this medicinal pill to Zhong Xiuhan now, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Zhong Haoren put the heaven-mending pill into a jade bottle, kowtowed again, and quickly entered the orchid of the valley courtyard. Zhong Haoren, I hope you have good luck. Xiao Hua raised his head to look at the sky and sighed. Today is the day this young master will go and harass Zhongling Mountain Villa again, but for you this young master will stay. If something happens to Zhong Xiuhan, this young master's reputation as the heaven-mending pill will be ruined, right? Then Xiao Hua flew up and chased after Zhong Haoren like a gust of wind. Peng 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 peng. Zhong Haoren walked to the front of Zhong Xiuhan's hut, and raised his hand to knock on the window. In the past 10 days, because of Xiao Hua's guarantee and Zhong Haoren's comfort, Zhong Xiuhan's mood had been relaxed, and she could sleep normally at night. Zhong Haoren's arrival did not attract her attention. Who is it? Zhong Xiuhan woke up and asked curiously, Is it Haoren? However, the familiar simple and honest voice did not ring out, and it was still the sound of knocking on the window. Who is it? Zhong Xiuhan shouted vigilantly. At this moment the knocking stopped. Damn Haoren, what kind of joke are you playing with me? Zhong Xiuhan opened the door slightly, and saw Zhong Haoren standing in front of the window with a smile on his face. She immediately laughed and scolded, I already agreed and you still didn't say anything? Do you want to die? Zhong Haoren did not answer and clapped his hand, took out the jade bottle, and handed it to Zhong Xiuhan. This is the heaven-mending pill? Zhong Xiuhan was stunned and immediately became overjoyed. She snatched the jade bottle, removed the cork, and poured out the heaven-mending pill. Is this the heaven-mending pill? Zhong Xiuhan looked at the ugly pill, and somewhat doubtfully looked at Zhong Haoren. Zhong Haoren did not speak and raised a finger to his lips, and made a gesture of breathing, indicating for Zhong Xiuhan to speak softly. This pill is so strange, there is no medicinal fragrance at all. Senior Xiao is not mistaken, right? Zhong Xiuhan did not seem to notice Zhong Haoren's strangeness, and muttered in a low voice, Don't you think so? Zhong Haoren's face revealed a smile, and he nodded slightly as if he had a card up his sleeve, but he still did not speak. What? Damn Haoren, why are you so strange today? Why are you not saying a word? Zhong Xiuhan finally noticed Zhong Haoren's silence and asked in a low voice, in the past it was always you who spoke and I listened. Why are you not saying a word today? Could it be that you are mute? That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel? We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.